What's the lady for?
Let me know when you're ready.
Oh, yeah. Everything is set. Let me just wait for Myrtle to make sure that we've got
You've got the summit, the terrible.
all of our stuff.
First observatory.
Make sure that we're ready to go.
Best one.
Wow.
Although the Empire State Building has to be.
Is it too late? Can I just change my seat?
You can scooch if you want.
It's not big.
The window.
I was like, when I was in high school.
It is nice.
Everyone going there and getting a decent song. Oh. But I don't know what about that. Yeah,
Is Catherine on?
now it's a little too much.
Okay, because she's gonna count for.
There's probably something.
Oh, she needs a link. Oh, okay, in order for her to. Come in as mom.
Oh, wait, on this random winter night.
And is Tom on?
Not yet, exactly.
Okay.
No one's there that time.
I know the timing is a little brutal there, but
They often keep it actually open until 2, but if it is open at that time, it's a good time to be there.
Yeah, I gotta hop.
Okay.
So it's been a minute.
let.
Hi, I'm Gail. Nice to meet you.
All right, I think we're gonna start the meeting to make sure, because I think we have some people who are coming in, so if you are ready. Let's go.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the June 30th meeting of the Parks and Public Spaces Committee, Manhattan Community Board 5. I am Libby Hutton, the chair of the committee. Before we begin, can we confirm quorum? Myrtle, Nickerson, vice
Can we
chair.
take an attendance?
Yeah, just really quickly.
Catherine
and
Todd online.
Yep,
Okay, Catherine and Todd are here.
Charles Baker here. Mohit Balodkar absent. Athena Cow absent. She said she was coming. Julia Dipple,
Here.
Catherine Ellington.
Here.
All right, present virtually. John Harris, present. Libby, present. Mike Kibak, virtual. Gail, present. Tim McCall, absent. Chris Nazaro, present. Tom Ricardo.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I'm just gonna mark him as absent. Todd Shapiro. See him there, okay. Present virtually. BJ Sung. Let's see BJ. Do we see BJ?
No.
Okay, so absent from 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have quorum.
Yay.
Yeah,
Do we have quorum?
yeah.
So you, Italian chief, Castellano is on in attendees. I tried to come out, he didn't take it, but just so you know, when you're doing that agenda item.
Okay.
You can go ahead.
Yeah.
and come out if you want.
Only people in the room count then.
Well, I thought you said Catherine.
Catherine and Todd.
Catherine Todd count.
Okay, and then we have 9.
Yep, with 9.
Yay, okay, fantastic. Thank you all for coming. We've got some new faces and some returning faces. So, if everyone could just go around the room and state your name. I am Libby Hutton, I'm the chair.
John Harris. Charles Baker. Christopher Mazzone.
Gail Kelly.
Ronald Vikram.
Julia DePel. And online we have,
Catherine Ellington.
Tom's there. Okay.
Michael Kabat.
There, Tom Ricardo.
we're doing introductions. Todd needs to go.
What's up?
Did Todd go?
Yeah. Alright, it's okay.
Okay. So we have a full agenda tonight, including updates from Urban Space on fire safety and our bids, and parks, and reviews of marketing activations from Bryant Park and Madison Square Park. Just a brief overview of following Robert's Rules of Order. We follow a slightly more relaxed form of that, but each item will begin with a brief presentation. And then the committee will be allowed to ask questions of that presenter. I will then open the discussion for public comment. If there is anyone who would like to speak on that agenda item, And then finally, I will put the committee into a business session, and at that time, only members of the committee are allowed to speak, and that is when our deliberations happen. And at that time, we will take a vote on a resolution or further action if necessary from the board. We're going to try to keep each agenda item as concise as possible, so please be sure to limit your questions to make sure that they're very pertinent to our discussion and deliberations on the matter, especially as it pertains to public space and public access to public space, and the commercialization or safety, as it were, of our parks. I will try to provide a little bit more context for some of what we're hearing, but we will also have an orientation for new committee members. Thank you for joining our bunch. It's really great to have you. Okay, so, additionally, please make sure that you wait to be recognized by the chair before asking a question or speaking. And please direct all of your comments to the chair so we avoid crosstalk. And let's get started. Here we have the urban space fire safety plan. So just for a little bit of context, there were 2 fires last winter within a 2-week timeframe at 34th Street Partnerships, Herald Square, which was a new holiday market. And then within a 2-week period, there was also a fire at Bryant Park Corporation in their winter village. Both were deeply concerning to us. Both parks are under the same management. And both of those winter villages are run by Urban Space. So we asked them to sort of debrief us on that. We had the fire chief come, and I circulated the talking points, sort of like what we discussed that was memorialized after that meeting to the committee. So this is the follow-up to that. Really looking forward to hearing where things stand. And so if we need to have them come back again, which we might as things get more to the point, as things get closer. I just want to make sure, Myrna, the fire chief is in the attendees, but we need to promote him, the battalion chief.
Okay.
Yeah, trying to promote him. Let's see. Oh, and BJ. BJ is here.
Sure. What's the fire chief's name, do you know?
Battalion chief.
Challenge, all right.
There we go. Great. Okay. Hi. Tina is joining us. Great. Okay. So, really looking forward to, I think, I'm not sure who we have from Urban Space here, but looking forward to your presentation. I know that the committee was very concerned about this and really appreciate you coming back to discuss this topic.
Yeah, of course. Evan Shelton here with Urban Space. We also have Eldon Scott, who is our president, and I do have a presentation for us.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much.
Let me share. Let's see. Okay, can you guys let me know if you can see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it. Thank you so much.
Great.
I want to just go to the first slide and so I'm Eldon Scott. I was here. I don't know when that was, January, February, and we've done a lot of work as promised since then. And
I'm sorry, could you speak up?
We're having a little bit of trouble with the volume.
oh, is it my microphone?
I think it's a little bit quiet.
I can hear you, Eldon. Are you guys able to turn him up by chance?
Yeah,
Can you-
yeah,
I'm testing. Can you hear me right now, or
yeah,
is that better?
yeah, that's better. Thank you.
I'll just give an intro anyway, and then if you can hear Evan better, he's going to go through the details. But just at a very high level, first of all, we're I'm very concerned as well about this. So we've spent really a lot or all of our energy focusing on how these things can be made very safe. And there's two high level things which we were already doing but are being now enhanced. One is the materials that we use so that if there ever were a fire, it can be contained. And 2 is SOPs and resources around preventing there ever from being a fire in the first place. And I'll just tell you that they're both equally critical. But we're very excited about the materials that we found, which Evan will go into, which are really kind of a game changer in terms of their ability to contain any flame, very high level of flame for, upwards of an hour. So that anything ever did happen again can be very cellular and very contained. But obviously the second one, SOPs, is equally important because we don't think we'll ever have this happen again. And that can be done by just proper training and testing and et cetera, which Evan will go through. So I'll pass it over to him.
Yeah, thank you, Eldon. And to the community board, thank you for having us here. First and foremost, with our markets, we have two types of kiosks. And to somewhat define those, our non-cooking kiosks are vendors who are selling retail, soft goods, prepackaged foods, et cetera. And then we have the cooking kiosks, of which are vendors who are applying heat to food to raise it to an internal temperature of a level that is proven to destroy pathogens. That's where the heat comes in, that's where the cooking comes in. Now, these cooking kiosks throughout our markets will be cladded with Class A1 fireproof building materials. Moving into the equipment, the cooking kiosks interiors will be cladded with MGO board. And to take this a little further and dive into what MGO is, it is magnesium oxide board. It is similar to a drywall, but much harder and comprised of magnesium oxide. It is classified as an A1 non-combustible material. It does not ignite, burn, or fuel a fire. It has a flame spread index of 0 and a smoke developed index of 0, indicating that it does not contribute to a spread of fire or produce hazardous smoke. As Eldon mentioned, this is really a game changer material. It allows us to really segregate the cooking kiosks. It allows for a fire to be contained for upwards of an hour if there ever was a fire. The melting point of MGO is extremely high. It is upwards of 4,500 degrees Fahrenheit, which is higher than the majority of all building fires, if not all building fires. And one of the main components of MGO is that as it's chemically, produced, it absorbs a significant amount of heat. And it also releases chemically bound water molecules as a vapor. So if there were a fire, it releases water vapors within to continue a cooling effect on the surface of the board. So much so that in testing, we found that if there is fire on one side of the board, you can have your hand placed against the exterior of the board. So, it effectively slows down the temperature rise. It contains the fire within one side of the board, and it does not melt or burn or ignite. Lastly, MGO board, it's very low thermal conductivity, which means that it's an effective insulator. This just means that it's holding fire within. So as I mentioned previously, this material will allow a fire to burn within for upwards of an hour. And again, it's class A1 non-combustible material. So this is what we're looking to clad the interior of our booths with from floor to ceiling, including the roof, so that if there ever were a fire, it would be fully contained and there would be ample time for, fire response. To take it a couple steps further, within our cooking kiosks, all vendors will be required, and Urban Space will manage this, to mount a 10-pound ABC fire extinguisher, a K-class fire extinguisher, and a fire blanket mounted above any cooking surface within the booth. So if there is a fire, and any and all staff members can just grab the fire blanket and pull it over the fire. If that is not sufficient, there will be mounted fire extinguishers within arm's reach. So that's our plan for safety equipment. Here are some images of the MGO board versus a plywood material. This is with a propane blowtorch, which is producing heat of extreme temperatures. The first image, you'll see them side by side. The second image, you'll see a couple of moments in, you'll see that there is a charring effect. However, there's an ember effect on the plywood with physical fire. On the third image, you'll see that the plywood is literally burning. And then on the fourth image on the bottom, this is the rear of the MGO board. And you could actually hold your hand to it with the torch blowing effectively. This is some prototyping of our Bryant Park kiosks. This shows MGO board from floor to ceiling, including the ceiling. Again, this, I hope, paints a picture of if there were a fire in any of these kiosks, that this material would hold the fire for upwards of an hour. And then to move a little bit away from the actual materials and into the staff training, the vendor training, Urban Spaces Director of Operations is in charge of all SOPs and implementation across our holiday markets. We're looking to have an extensive vendor and employee training for all on-site employees involved in any operations or cooking. We will have F4 fire guard certificates in all of our cooking kiosks at all times. This will run similar to how the Department of Health requires all cooking kiosks have a food safety handler certificate at all times. We will do the same for a fire guard certificate. And this means also our staff will have fire guard certificates, meaning that there will be upwards of 40 to 80 fire guards present on site at all times throughout the market. We will have daily checklists executed by all cooking kiosks and monitored by Urban Space on-site management. We will have vendor safety logs monitored and tracked weekly by the Director of Operations, laminated evac plans hung inside of all cooking kiosks, and emergency contact lists also laminated and hung inside all on-site cooking kiosks. And lastly, we have the Bryant Park evacuation plan. I'm going to, kick any questions and defer this to Bryant Park. However, this is something that we wanted to make sure we showed to make it clear that we do have a plan in place.
Okay. Want to give everyone ample time. If you could describe the slide a little bit more, or maybe Bryant Park can, just to make sure that if people can't visually see the slide, that they have a sense of what it is that everyone else is looking at.
Sure, I will. I'm going to defer to Bryant Park. I know that I saw Irene and Nina on the call.
Sure. Nina, do you want to speak to this, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to it. So what we have on the screen now is a site plan of Bryant Park during Winter Village. Shows the footprints of the main pavilions, which there are 3 of, as well as all of the other urban space kiosks that are scattered throughout the site. We also have indicated all of the exits from the park, including from the center of the park, from the ice rink, and the pavilions, as well as along the perimeter of the north, south, east, and west sides. Just to be really clear about exactly where the exit paths and paths of travel that individuals can take when they're in the park and, find that they need to, locate the nearest exit. So these will be hung throughout the event, and as well as in each of the kiosks that are by urban space.
Can we just run through how many of the kiosks are by urban space and just like how many exits there are and sort of what the breakdown is? Because what I'm looking at is sort of the four different quadrants of the park. And I'm curious about what the crowd size is you expect at any given time, or sort of the most crowded time in any of these areas.
So
Okay,
I can speak, go ahead, Irene.
I was just going to point out that there are, in this side of the park, and when we say this side of the park, we mean the west side of the New York Public Library, there are 11 entrances / exits to the park. They vary in size and accessibility. So, for example, the one on the west side leading to 6th Avenue is 40 or 50 feet wide. Some of the others are only 15 feet wide. So 11 entrances and exits into and out of the park. Being a park, there are no doors or turnstiles or anything like that. So everything is very porous, which is very helpful in getting people in or out of the park. To Nina's follow-up on what Nina said, we have a couple of pavilions which do have doors and entrances. They are on our TPA, so they are looked at differently, but we've also indicated entrances and exits from those on this plan as well. They're sort of in the internal blue carpet area. So it's sort of the second circle of red arrows here. As far as attendance, it really varies day to day, and depending on the weather, because again, everything is pretty much outdoors. Evan, did you have something to add?
No, I was just gonna say that all of the kiosks that you see here outside of, I guess,
Yes, thank you.
the lodge and the lower pavilion are monitored and operated by Urban Space.
Right. So any squares or rectangles that you see that are not white, that have little numbers on them, are the shops that Evan is referring to. So they're sort of scattered around the park, so that you can understand which are the urban space shops. And in terms of attendance, again, as I said, it varies. It can be, as low as a couple of thousand people throughout the day, depending on the weather, to even on a busy day in the summer, we can have 20,000 people pass through the park. And we estimate that on the sidewalks, passing the area, for example, on 42nd Street, on an average day, 200,000 people could pass alongside the park. Those are some numbers that we have from over the years.
Okay. I think the concern that I'm definitely just curious to hear more of is that if you're in one of the smaller corridors, because of the additional sort of the space that's taken up by the shops themselves, if that can get quite crowded, as our committee has noted in past years for several years now, during holiday times. We just want to make sure that any additional measures are taken to make sure that the crowding is reduced, so that in the event of a fire, the fires that took place last year did not have anyone, it wasn't during on hours, but we just want to make sure that we can get everybody out. And so some of the shops are quite densely put together, and those are the ones that are concentrated towards the center of the park. So it just seems to be like a longer exit.
So something that, this is actually last year's layout, so we'll come back to you in the fall with the coming season's layout. But we're actually reducing some of the shops, and we are expanding the decking. So for example, in the north area, there you can see we pushed shops back and created a large one-level deck, so that it was easier for people to move. It relieved a lot of congestion. We got a lot of great feedback from the public, who really said that this felt a lot more comfortable. It's also helpful for people with strollers, wheelchairs, walkers. It just makes it a lot easier because there are fewer level changes across that space now. And we hope to implement a similar, level decking on the south side. But we didn't bring it here because we wanted to focus on the fire safety today.
Okay. I guess this might be a question for the battalion chief. Thank you for joining us again, but I was just wondering how close, it's a very niche question, but where the fire hydrants and sort of are located with this layout, just around the park? I'm just curious how far away they are and sort of what that logistically looks like. Chief? I lost him. Chief Castellano? Okay. Irene, I don't know if you can speak to that piece of things at all or happen to know, but that's something to follow up with.
Offhand, I don't know exactly where the hydrants are, but they are on the sidewalks around the park. As an example, I mean, the fire that happened in Bryant Park, it was the first in over 20 years of this market. It was addressed very quickly by FDNY. They came within minutes, and the fire was put out right away. So my guess is there are fire hydrants along the sidewalk. But I don't have that information offhand. I'm sure the fire chief would know.
So, Irene, thank you for that. The reason why we bring this up is because one of the things that was brought up in one of the news articles about the fire in Bryant Park was that they had a hard time accessing the fire hydrants. That's why we bring it up.
Not to my knowledge. I did not.
Okay.
I did not hear that in any of the reports I received.
I just wondered, do you have a layout of the 34th Street market as well, as far as like evacuation plans for that? I know it's much smaller, but just wanting to be able to sort of visualize where things are. Again, just because it's a temporary structure that's not so temporary. We want to make sure that everyone's safe and that tourists feel safe coming.
We don't have that for this because we were kind of prepared for Bryant Park, but certainly can share that.
Okay. Are the plans that you have for 34th Street, like for the safety for Bryant Park, are there different plans for 34th Street, or is it mostly the same?
Plans.
As far as, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I will open this up for questions from the committee, and then I will circle back with some of my own if the committee has not brought them up. I see Catherine, you have your hand raised.
Yes, good evening. So my question is, you said that you were going to use floor to ceiling MGO boards. One of the most remarkable things about Bryant Park that's still underappreciated is that it was once the Croton Reservoir. It used to be called the Murray Hill Reservoir, and this is what makes it a unique landmark. And it's also what makes it an asset that we're trying to preserve. So my question is, I guess up under the skating rink or somewhere, can you put some more of this MGO board to protect the remnant that is a historical part of the landmark?
I can somewhat speak to this. What's underneath the lawn, which becomes the rink in the winter, is the archives of the New York Public Library. It's a fully functioning archive. It's
Okay.
quite remarkable if you ever get a chance to go down there. So there aren't any remnants left of those days, but it is, you know, a fully very substantial building that's underneath the lawn.
So again, even more important in terms of archives, you know, it may be worth exploring adding some more of this kind of protective board in case of fire. So I just, you know, that's my question. And it should still be noted somewhere, and if I can have a side comment, it should still somewhere be noted and prominent that the lawn was once part of the Croton distributing reservoir in the park. That's what makes it remarkable as well,
Catherine, we
historically.
just want to make sure that all of our questions are really focused on questions right now, and then in comments, we can just circle back to.
Thank you.
Just in the interest of time. Thank you, Catherine. Is there anyone in the room? John Harris.
I'd like to know if you could just walk us through what happens when there's a fire. In my mind, to simplify things, you probably have at least 3 scenarios: a low risk fire, a medium risk fire, and a high risk fire. So for instance, a very low risk one would be a kitchen incident limited to 1 kiosk. On the other extreme, it's a windy day. You know, there's a significant fire. It goes into the bushes, the trees, and what have you. Could you walk us through the protocol of when you decide to call the fire department, when you don't? What sort of fire marshals do you have on your staff who are you know, patrolling the grounds and are able quickly not only to contact the fire department, but make the appropriate announcement so that you can take advantage of all the exits and make sure people are moving out not only quickly and safely, but also out of the correct exits. If you could just speak to that, I appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you, John. Many of the same questions.
Sure. So as I had mentioned, you know, each and every vendor kiosk will have a fire guard, and that's a certification that they go to the fire department and they receive by passing a test. So each of the 40, roughly 40 cooking kiosks will have one of those. All of urban space staff will have an F4 fire guard certificate. And I know that some of Bryant Park staff also, maybe the majority of Bryant Park's staff has F4 fire guard certificates.
Yes.
That said, there's anywhere between 40 to 80 fire guards on site at any given time. So if a fire were to break out, the fire department would be called immediately, regardless of scale of the fire. And the proper measures, you know, through the training of the F4 fire guard certificate would be followed.
If I may follow up on that, I guess what I'm struggling with is, what I don't understand is, you say that the fire department will be called, that things happen. Can you just walk us through step by step? Who calls the fire department? Who's called? The fact that you have so many people who are trained, that's great. But who's taking the lead on this? And just if you could just walk through. Could you be a little bit more granular on how this works, please?
Sure. When someone is trained as a fire guard, they are empowered basically to make that call. And that's what happened the day of the fire. Someone with fire guard training certificate called the FDNY, who came within minutes and put the fire out. So anyone who's a fire guard, that is what you're taught when you go to the training with the city to get your fire guard certificate. They walk you through the steps, how to identify, who to call, all of those things.
So who would determine where the public, what exits they go to, where not to go? I guess I understand everything you're saying. I guess and I know we're not in the comments section, so I'll just phrase the question. who's coordinating all this? Who's taking the lead on this process if there is a fire?
I think that speaks to the same question that we posed at our last meeting, about sort of an evacuation like drill and sort of who is doing what and who is directing people to where, and then following up on something that I don't think I heard answered from John's original question. That was also brought up at our February meeting about having a PA system, and that was a recommendation.
We have a PA system. We have a
Okay,
PA
but-
system, yeah. We can
So-
make announcements around the rink and into the pavilions and into the lodge building. And the urban space porter team will have bullhorns so that they can reach the outer perimeters of the park where that PA system may not reach. But you can hear announcements on the rink pretty clearly around the park.
Okay, but
One last
yeah, and to John's point though,
Who is in charge of all this? And who's usually in all, activities I'm involved with, ultimately at some point meet someone who's taking the leadership and who's the buck stops.
sort of on call.
The people on this call are
those.
those people. The
Just
people
like
on this call are those people. Evan and Eldon run urban space. They are the operators of the holiday market.
I
Park
think-
Corporation.
I think our
We
question
are
is
in
more,
communication all the time, every day. There's a
I
phone
think,
chain.
but I think the question is more about who is on site and who is the highest ranking person in management on site every single day. And is that just one person, or is it this sort of distributed evacuation plan where it's not hierarchical, it's collaborative?
Urban Spaces Director of Operations is on site every day, as well as myself, the Senior Vice President.
Okay.
I am on
Um,
site almost every day. And if I'm not
there-
on site, then there's someone in my stead. We have 80 to 100 employees on site on behalf of Bryant Park every day.
Okay, I think it just sort of that is helpful as far as the org chart goes, as far as like who is tasked with which of these things and making sure that someone has the keys to get on the PA system. Like I think that we're concerned about like the actual logistical part, which goes to sort of the planning and practicing of the evacuation plan. But I want to make sure that the rest of the committee can ask some questions. I know that I'm gonna go to Tom Ricardo. So I know you've had your hand up for a while. Tom, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, there's a little bit of a delay. Apologize for that. So is this going to be like, is this now the standard operating procedure for urban spaces in Bryant Park? Is this the standard procedure for urban spaces going forward, or is this just for the winter garden? The new. I'm assuming these are all new, kind of to adjust for what happened. Just to start with that, actually, is probably the first question.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, so it's standard everywhere.
And the idea is this is going to be every urban space within Bryant Park, or we'll just address 34th Street in Bryant Park. This is going to be the going forward.
Yes.
I think, Tom, I think that they said that they're gonna come back with their actual plans for 34th Street as far as the actual visual site layout. And I think that we've had some discussions, at least internally, about making sure that we collaborate with the other community boards that also have winter markets to make sure that we're all coordinated and the safety, it's a citywide or certainly borough-wide issue. And some of those markets also touch our district, but we share it with, I think, CB7 up in Columbus Circle, but yeah.
Sure.
I see DJ, you had your hand up. Tom,
Sorry,
did
I
you have a
wasn't.
Did you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, no, I was just referring. The reason why I'm asking, I'm just asking, is this the booth standard going forward? I know they're coming with a new setup for the 34th Street, but what I'm trying to understand is because there's other things that are urban spaces that we were told last meeting, the urban spaces. So I'm just saying, hey, is this going to be just for the winter market and you're trying it out? Or have you come to the standard that this is now the standard, which they weren't holding the booths to before, that now they are going to hold to? That was the implication of the statement. Otherwise, is this the going forward, or is this just for winter the winter park going forward? Because the standard wasn't there before.
I think, hi, Tom. I think I can answer your question. The structures in Bryant Park are different for sure. Yes, there are different types of structures in the other parks. But I believe, and Evan or Eldon can confirm this, that they're planning to apply what they've learned over the last 6 months and, use these same materials and protocols and staff training at the other markets, but they do have different booth structures at the other markets.
This is going to be the standard structure going forward. When we hear urban space within, that's what I was going for.
Yeah, our shop structures at Bryant Park are definitely different than everyone else. Yes.
The fireproof materials is our standard moving forward. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so
And the
much.
fire extinguishers and the training and all of the rest.
Great, fantastic. I think DJ, I've seen your hand up. Do you have another question? Follow-up question?
Yep. I'm not sure if I missed this from the previous presentations, but those exits, is that sign clearly visible? And the other follow-up to that is, as you know, especially around the holiday pop-up markets or shops, there's many tourists who come in. So are those signs just in English, if it exists, or, the universal language for exits?
Hi. So because we are a park and we don't have doors, it's difficult to put exit signs above the exits because there is no structure to hold those things. However, in our planning process and in our layout, we keep, the entrances as open and visible as possible. As part of this process, we're planning to add those evacuation maps around in well visible places. We will also have one, correct me if I'm wrong, Evan, in each booth. So we'll have a laminated copy in each booth. They can help direct the public. We will also have them inside the pavilions. We often have signage that tells you, where 40th Street is, for example. We have arrow signs, so it says, the rink is this way, 40th Street is this way. So we do have directional signage all around the park. We're always trying to improve it and tweak it and add to it and make sure it's very clear and visible.
Irene,
there are no doors.
Right, I understand that, but you do have signs saying exits here or where the rink is. So couldn't additional something be added saying somehow, or even one of those freestanding, even buildings have those freestanding signs that says exit or fire exits. I think that would be helpful. Because again, I mean, laminated and maps are great, but when there's a fire and I'm running around trying to look for an exit, I'm not looking at a map or looking at a laminated copy, or I may not have it on hand. So it'd be great to have some visual signage that clearly says which way is the fire exit.
Yep.
And some sort of international language, because I know the park is well loved, and many people come from all over the world. So other than
yes, we try to use icons instead of words. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Yes.
Yeah, Irene, I think that a lot of the committee members have echoed this as far as we're really focused on the exit plan. I know that all of these measures are being taken so that there won't be a fire to begin with, but we want to make sure that, especially as our tourists come to our very much beloved park, that we make sure that they can get out as safely as they got in. Are there any additional questions? And great to hear that you're considering the exit signs and looking forward to seeing if they get incorporated into the plan when we talk about this again.
Could you educate us on the broader vendor vetting process? Are they required to supply their own fire extinguisher? Are they limited in terms of cooking method? Like, how are you thinking about kind of being preemptive in terms of the prevention?
So I guess what my response to that is, all of our cooking vendors are electric only. So all of their equipment must be electric. Yes, they have strict guidelines and rules directly from the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene that requires them to have specific items within said booths. And they're actually held to a much higher standard. They're held to a brick and mortar food service establishment as opposed to a temporary food service establishment. So the guidelines are pretty high.
Okay, does that fully answer your question, or do you have a follow-up?
Who asked the question in the room? This is Catherine.
It was Athena, one of our new members.
Zena? Hi.
Eva, hi. Just to follow up on that, so everybody's using electric, like, is there a limit on like the voltage and pitch they could do? Like, that sounds like, you know, behind open fires.
Yeah, even more.
Yeah, it's a tricky recipe there.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand. A tricky recipe.
In terms of if you have a circuit shortage or,
Who's examining the electrical behind all of these cooking appliances and to make sure that they are fully fire rated, just because there's a lot of tinder in
Especially
these situations.
doing that on 34th Street, there was faulty electric wiring that caused the fire.
Yeah,
And it may not only come from lights, it can also come from other, or heaters, it can also come from other things like cooking.
Sure. So yes, we use a certified electrician. Their name is Agreco. They are high standing in the electrical field. They run the Olympics, they run F1, they run many large scale events. So their team on site is ensuring that their safety is number one. And yes, each of our vendors submits an electrical plan that goes to Agreco in which is approved.
And then does someone actually spot check that when they do it, that they've actually followed the plan and what they said they were gonna do? Is that where the fire inspectors that you said are going to come and inspect, is that where they come in to make sure that it's executed the right way?
Fire inspectors don't inspect electrical. We have a full-time licensed electrician on staff who's always checking these things, and Agreco, who is the vendor who provides these things, goes through and makes sure that everything, all the connections are there. They're on site very often. I think that we use electrical because there's less of a risk there. Gas, propane, we can't go there. That requires, a real building with a sprinkler system and.
Yeah, the propane was part of the problem. I remember the chief was telling us last time, and
That was at 36th Street.
Yeah, it was very vivid, what can go wrong with propane, so. Appreciate it being electrical. Okay, any other questions from the committee?
Yes, right here, Mike Kayback. I don't know how to raise my hand.
Okay, Michael Kayback,
Okay.
you got a question?
How do we know that there is a fire extinguisher in each booth every day at all hours, each cooking booth? How do we know that the wiring is ship-shape every day, that somebody doesn't drop a knife on one of the wires and it gets exposed? Who's every day looking at this stuff? Who's qualified? These, 40 to 50 people you're talking about that are roaming the place who are qualified for such and such? How do we know that they are doing their stuff? Is there an independent gal gonna walk around there to make sure that the fire safety protocols are being observed?
There will be daily checklists managed by our on-site management and weekly inspections by the director of operations.
And I think to answer your question, we actually beefed up our staffing and brought in a multi-unit restaurant general manager. And this is what this person's done for her career. So ultimately, they will be looking at these checklists and making sure that people under her are doing their job as well.
Libby, is there some kind of report that we would ask to maybe be shown on a monthly, weekly basis, maybe? To make sure-
Yeah, hold that comment for our business discussion, but yes, that is something that we can discuss as what we would like to have happen coming out of this. Vernal, your question?
Thank you.
And then I want to try to, in the interest of time, sort of
Right.
wrap this up to get to public comment and then discussion.
That's fine, we can go around me then. I think we have an idea of what they're doing here.
Okay, and then I guess one more question, for you, Irene, and, Eldon and Evan. Would it be possible for you to come back, this fall with those plans for, 34th Street, if you plan to do that again? And then also an update as this moves forward, just to make sure like that's more finalized. I know you're gonna come back with this, but I think we definitely are interested in making sure that we don't have a repeat. And that trying to coordinate the, urban space across our adjacent districts as well. Just want to make sure that we can coordinate again.
Yep, I think we were muted, but yes, we're saying yes.
Great. Okay, are there any members of the public who would like to comment? Great, seeing none. The committee is in business session. We will have a conversation now about what we would like to have happen next on this item. And how we are feeling. Once again, please wait to be recognized by the chair, for, before speaking. Anyone? Tom Ricardo.
Yeah, I think, this is a start. I do, why I was asking if this was, standard procedure going forward is, want to make sure we understand, there's going to be other events and other things that come along. And I don't want them to just say like, oh, well, we did that as a response. And, we have a slip back going forward. If they're saying this is the standard going forward, so what we can hand them to. That said, I think there's things that, we should look to add. One of the things I would say is at least one letter of attestation. ATTESTION. From the runner of the booth, just says, hey, this is checked. This has been checked this date. This is this is within the regulations. The letters create a level of responsibility. If you have anyone checking it, if they're saying the director of operations is checking it, if he creates one for each one of the booths, that way we can say like, oh, this is the date, this is when it was checked. Anytime they check it, just kind of add on to that letter, just to say, and that's what you would do. I work with cybersecurity. That's what you do to any sort of risk management, is to have some sort of letter of attestation towards that, beyond any individual certification. I would want to see, the fire booths come in, as well as commentary from the, I know the fire department and come through, but I think that, it's a good start, but I wouldn't, at the end of the day, I don't think this is done or at a point where, it's at a finished state. It's just at a moving forward state. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Any other comments? Anyone in the room? John Harris.
Yeah, I think, based on previous meetings and today, I think they've done a good job in terms of addressing the materials and the protocol for, the various kiosks and what have you. My primary concern, which I'm not sure they've heard me completely, is the overall coordination. And what happens if there's an event outside of the area that we've been talking about, supposed to fire sprigs of trees or upwards toward the library, what have you. I don't have a sense that there's truly a centralized coordination process. And sort of in my mind, I see the potential for chaos.
Yeah, the actual logistics of step by step.
Right.
Like the plan, and that's why we run fire drills. So perhaps like the ASCII.
Yeah, and that's my concern.
Then
But
have a
think
walk,
they're
which
all
I think,
important in
which
terms
is
of,
available.
I think they're all important and defined in terms of urban space and what they do. I want to know what Bryant Park is
And like the evacuation coordination, yeah, I think that that is something that I think we talked about in February, that having the prevention department of FDNY is separate.
Yeah.
But I think that having like a walkthrough, I mean, I'm happy to join it too, but to make sure that we feel that everyone really knows where the fire hydrants are and that every scenario or most of them are sort of planned for and who is
Right.
literally on site on the PA system. I think that's definitely a good reiteration.
And again, what happens if it spreads beyond urban space,
Yeah,
right? Urban space is just one aspect of the park. So I haven't heard
especially if we're having like a dry winter, yeah.
any of that, yes.
Myrtle,
So to your point, I mean, well, actually, before I start, can we check to see if the battalion chief is available right now? If he can,
Chief? Chief Castellano?
no, I guess
No,
not.
I think that's not.
Okay.
I think that he's not the prevention chief. I
Okay.
think that we need the prevention chief who's separate from.
Right, I mean, regardless, I'd like to know what the fire department thinks of what's in place, what is proposed. In this presentation, number one. Number two, I completely agree, there needs to be. Well, first, there needs to be a fire drill that needs to happen, so that everybody knows what their duties are if something goes wrong, and it's great. I mean, we've heard again and again that, this is the first time that this fire has happened, so the plan is not for, I mean, obviously you want to prevent fires, but the plan would be for if there is a fire, what do you do? So maybe that's all the more reason why we should have a fire drill, is because we've only had one fire. If we were having one every year,
One at every location.
that'd be a bigger problem, but at least people would know what to do. So that's one. There needs to be one person who is in charge at all points in time for this aspect of the holiday market. So if that person is not on the premises at any point in time, they clock out and they tag somebody else in, and they're now the person who's in charge of coordinating any sort of effort if something happens. I mean, that would make me a lot more comfortable. With regards to, the inspection of the electrical equipment, you said, these people that you contract, urban space contracts take, what are in charge of the Olympics as well. That's great. Are these the same people that were in charge at 36th Street as well? Do you know? They were not. So this is new.
Yeah, Greco did not do 34th Street, and those electricians are no longer working for us.
Okay.
Okay.
So we should definitely, so that's good to know.
Glad that there's been a change.
And then I'm just looking through everything else. I think, yep, that was it.
Okay, Catherine.
Hi, so I do think that this is taking shape with a lot of progress. I agree that there should be some sort of drill, like maybe just before the village opens that week when everybody's setting up and preparing, there could be some kind of drill. But I do also want to point out that although this is not a building, that there should be a designated approach to understanding who calls who calls the fire department. The first thing you want to know in an emergency, everybody will think everybody called and nobody called. And so that's why we keep asking. That's my understanding. That's the 911 in a medical emergency. Someone has to say, I called. And so that's what we're looking, that's at least what I'm looking to hear. But in other parts of this, I do want to say that any part of the park that can be protected, that is part of, there's a lot of art, landscaping in the park that can be protected with this A1 MGO board should be. And I do continue to talk about this idea of the history of the reservoir. It's my understanding, we're in comments that, it's my understanding that there are some remnants left. But that being said, I do feel like there's an enormous level, and that this crowd, 40 to 80 people, will create a sense of preparedness for prevention. And in the event of an emergency, they will work together for a great outcome. I want to applaud, I do see that in what you all are saying, that people coming together regularly, meeting and talking about this, everybody's eyes will be open. People will be paying attention in ways they weren't before. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Okay, so I'm hearing more about a drill. I'm hearing more about wanting to know who's in charge and signage and protecting the landscape park. New member, Julia.
Thanks. So I'm wondering to the to what extent can we require the vendor urban space to come back to us with SOPs? Because when I hear SOP in my mind, an SOP answers all of our questions that we're asking right now.
Yeah.
So I think if we see a fleshed
With a
out
detailed
SOP,
version. Yeah, we
an
can-
SOP and has who's calling the fire department, an SOP has who's responsible for
An
what.
actual, yeah. I think
Exactly.
that as those plans become more detailed, I think that it sounds like, Evan and Eldon and Irene, it sounds like you guys are welcome to, open to coming back, because we certainly need to see more about 34th Street as well.
Yeah.
But I think that those detailed questions would really put a lot of our anxieties at
Yeah.
ease here.
And I just say that to say I hope that the SOP would put us all at ease, and I think.
Yeah, and solve sort of the planning. I know that I would love to have a drill. And I would love, I think we need to probably work with Marisa to get the prevention chief, which is a slightly different part of the FDNY. Anyone else have how's everyone else feeling about this? People, okay, Todd, we haven't heard from you yet.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, Todd.
Oh, okay, so I don't have the greatest audio. I thought I heard something about a fire chief. I agree with all of the sentiments that have been expressed, but the most important, yes, drills and other things should certainly be looked into, because there is a history of a fire and we want to do our due diligence. But to me, a critical piece of evidence is some kind of written report or testimony from the fire department that I assume is going to sign off on this, explaining what's changed since last year and that they're okay with it. Libby, did I hear something that we're going to try to get that, or we can't get it right now?
We can put that into a resolution. I think Murnal was asking, he wants to know, unfortunately, we are unable to get the chief to, who's on with us now, to get his opinion to weigh in, but also I think we want to see what the SOPs are. We want to see more of the plans, and also the 34th Street and potentially Columbus Circle and our adjacent holiday winter villages that to also see that. But I think it would certainly quell a lot of our anxieties to know the fire department thinks it's great. There's been a drill, they say looks great, they know where everything is, and it's all good. So yes, Todd.
I would simply add one other quick thing, which is the temptation for any vendor is to try to get as many people in there as possible. You know, it's never clear that of course, they have the liability and there's insurance, but there's always the temptation to try to push it right up to the edge. And it's our due diligence to make sure that that's not happening and that there's a competent plan in place. Okay, I'm good.
No, totally great. Thanks, Todd. BJ, did I see you? I know your raise hand functions a little bit.
Thanks.
goofy.
Yeah. Just a comment. I don't want to belabor the point because I think my colleagues have mentioned it, but I think what we're asking for, just to reiterate, is some sort of a fire safety director or fire safety person on site, clearly marked with like a banner or something. And as Catherine mentioned, some sort of your internal protocol and process, right? Like chain of command, who calls who, and at least even for the public to call, besides 911, I guess. Yeah. So I don't want to belabor it, but I think that's what you're hearing loud and clear from us about that protocol
The
process.
specific logistics. Yeah, I think that should go into anything that comes out of this meeting for sure.
I mean, I'll
Christopher?
yeah, sure. What's was brought up previously about the kind of what level this comes from. Because obviously we see that the vendor is happy to show us pictures of fireproof cladding, and that's great. But if that's just coming from one particular vendor, like why isn't it just Bryant Park standard to be like if you don't use all these fireproof materials, and if you want to use propane, we automatically reject you, and if you don't, like, these things should just come from Bryant Park directly, and that's
And
the
then it
level
goes
at which all of this should be happening is Bryant Park and not the vendors they outsource stuff to, right? Like, whatever Urban Space says, Urban Space could go under tomorrow for all we know. I don't know anything about the company, I don't care about the company, but Bryant Park should have the standards in place already that says, like, we don't deal with vendors who won't fireproof their, using X or Y standard. I think those standards should be something that we ask for all of our markets that happen in our district, like, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter, where they are, but I think we should then pressure every bid and every park to kind of have a standard, about fireproofing, not using propane. Maybe we want other things in terms of like crowd control, like number of people who are allowed in or out at particular times, like those are things that we should be demanding and that we should, expect, but not, obviously, not from the
Not from.
clients
from
or the whatever they call
Okay,
these
you want it,
vendors. It
you
should be
want
the
something
level of
additional at the
the
park level, okay.
Or, I mean, maybe even level of city government, like there
Yeah.
need to be laws about fireproofing.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the things that came up
advocate.
as far as permitting goes, is that the size and scope and scale of the winter villages is obviously fairly permanent, it's a month long, but it's sort of not quite taken account in terms of like city permitting, which we can look into more. I think we've got two options as far as what to do from that, is that we can kind of take a specific thing on dealing with these fires specifically, and then have like a slightly separate action that is asking for more stuff. I don't know, Marnell, do you have a thought on sort of organization of that? To incorporate that, just to keep the items clear. We can also put both into, so that's sort of the question here, is what do we want our action to be from this? Just looking at the time, want to make sure that we've kind of, if everyone's sort of weighed in here, I think it sounds like we have consensus pretty much.
Yeah, and my opinion is that we don't have adequate information still. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a half fleshed out plan. I mean, it's a good start, but we're not there yet. So would like to see what the full fleshed out plan is, and then maybe we can
Then the
write a
additional
letter. Yeah.
parts, yeah, and then do we want to also ask or take action? And have a resolution that we want more of a plan at the parks level? Do you want to continue to talk about that offline? How does anyone feel a certain way about this? Tom, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do a resolution just because I would say there's not enough here. The idea would be like, you could say like, oh, this is a good start. But like, it's not a resolution, right? Like resolution is, we resolve as a board and the action will be like incomplete.
We have a letter.
I get
saying
you
that
can
we're
write
back
an
in law, but-
incomplete, but I don't think there's enough here to even say like, this is I'm not saying this is a bad start. I'm not saying, but like, there's simple things like we didn't hear the fire department comment. And I know he might have got disconnected, but before I say like, I know some things about risk. I don't know enough about fire. Where fire department might have insight where they say, to like Nathan's comment, like actually we would prefer us be the qualifier and then the vendor have to stand it. You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
More information. So are you thinking then more along the lines of keeping everything from this as another summary, like similar to the action that we took in February?
Yes, something like that. And with the commenting, we're still waiting to hear from the fire department.
And we look forward to
we
hearing
look
from everyone
for the
involved. Yeah.
fire department and some of the issues that were brought up during the meeting.
Okay, great. Catherine, I think that you might be volunteering to write some of this up for us to memorialize it so that we can bring it to a board vote.
Sure. I will
Yeah.
write the summary, but what I also wanted to say, the holdback here for me around not being ready for resolution is that there is still some clarifying of roles and responsibilities. What is Bryant Park's role, where they need to hold, I like what Christopher was saying about Urban Space has these SOPs, but Bryant Park should have them, but it's also between the Parks Department and Fire Department. Some of the questions we're having tonight are related directly to the Fire Department and their responsibility in a fire situation and the prevention situation. So I just really want to see further clarification of the roles, but I do see progress here that is remarkable, and that's it.
Great. I think that, do I have a motion for a letter to memorialize this? And Catherine will be the one writing it. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great,
Wait.
okay. Oh, Catherine, yeah,
No, it's fine. I also want to say I will open up the document to this committee, and anybody who feels like they need to make comments to the summary or add, please participate. Getting these things done timely takes everybody. Thank you.
great. Thank you so much, Catherine.
Should we take this to a vote?
Yes, we'll take it to a vote. The motion on the floor is to memorialize everything we just discussed. And have Urban Space and Bryant Park and potentially other parks that also host Urban Space to come back with more detailed SOPs and clear plans and involve the fire department and the prevention and how do we get everybody out? Votes.
All right, Charles,
Aye.
Tina.
Right.
Julia,
Hi.
Catherine,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Libby,
Yes.
Mike Quebec.
He said yes, I heard it. Okay. It's very famous. I heard it.
Gail,
I was a yes, by the way.
thank you.
Wow.
Chris,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
BJ,
Yes.
and I am a yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for coming, Eldon, Evan, Irene, Nina, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and thoughtfulness in putting this together and the progress that you've made. I know definitely is putting our committee at ease and certainly our residents and visitors from all over the world. Want to make sure that everyone feels safe and able to enjoy the Winter Village and the holiday season. And looking forward to having you back with a little bit more input as plans take shape. Okay. Moving on to our next item. So I did want to preface some of this. We are going to stay on, and Kelly is here, who is our liaison from Bryant Park Corporation, who's been here this whole time, with 2 activations and 2 marketing events that are happening. It's the Olay marketing activation that's happening September 12th to 13th, and then the Summer I Turned Pretty screening in Bryant Park. So just a little bit of background for members of the committee who are new and a refresher for those who, maybe have missed a meeting. But there's been general upset,
Do you want to just talk about?
There's been a little bit of-
Activations are needed even.
there's been a little bit of concern about the level of activations, the level of events that are happening. But I just wanted to say that those events and sort of the overall scale is an issue that we have with Bryant Park, and that's an ongoing conversation. So Bryant Park is going to come back and have that conversation with us about sort of the size, scope, scale, number, duration, money, dollar per person coming in, all of those questions we're going to deal with at our first meeting back from our break in September, but it might be, I think it's that first week of September when we have our meeting due to Labor Day holiday. So please, as we look at these events and these activations, know that that is being handled and some of our overarching concerns will be addressed. But the real time and place to have that conversation about the overall marketing and that stuff is really September when we're dealing with Bryant Park directly and not these particular activations. So the goal is to keep these activations sort of to our own internal matrix and sort of what we've approved in the past and sort of keep it to that, with the note that yes, we are upset with the overall level and size and scope, but if we can try to keep this sort of narrow. And then also just in the interest of time, it is 7:15 now. I would love to have us out of here by 8. And we have a little bit of committee business to do at the end as well. So I just want to keep everyone mindful of time. Once again, please keep your questions very sort of pointed, and then also level of activations. Just wanted to sort of level set there that we are in fact going to be dealing with this. So with that, Kelly, do you have the Olay presentation or presenters for us?
Yeah, my event producer Kate is going to be presenting today.
Fantastic. Hi, Kate. Welcome to Community Board 5.
Thank you so much. I am happy to be here. Let me just get this up for you. Okay, everybody can see that, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Great. I'm going to be talking to you about an Olay pop-up for September 12th and 13th. So what we are looking to do is celebrate Olay's 73-year legacy. So we will host a 2-day event for the Bryant Park community where everyone can receive free Olay products, some fun swag, and they can opt into a professional photo moment. So we would be looking to do overnight load-in after the park closes on September 11th and be ready to go for 7 a.m. the next day. So there's no load-in happening beyond that time. We would be live for 7 hours on both Friday and Saturday and load out Saturday night after the park closes. We would be giving away 4 different Olay SKUs from their core product line. So if you are familiar with Olay, you might be familiar with some of these different products, but it will be their micro sculpting cream, Retinol 24, Super Cream, and Super Serum. We'll also be giving away mini totes and these keychain compact mirrors for people to take to look good on the go. And as I mentioned, we will also have a professional photographer there to be able to have immediate digital photos, which there will be a waiver that everybody has to opt into in order to have their photo taken. And then we're looking to create a 4-sided structure, which will be 3 sides will be giving out the products. You'll see up here on the top right is just an example of how the door works, where we're having kind of a blind reveal that has a little bit of a surprise and delight moment. So you'll open a door and it'll reveal which product is behind it. We're breaking this up between, again, that micro sculpting cream, retinol, and then the 2 supers. So 3 walls will be for the product giveaway, and that 4th wall will be for the photo moment that will be built into the structure. And we're looking to be at the Fountain Terrace, so taking up that footprint there. The structure, we're looking at around 200 square feet, and then it'll just be line queues outside of that to make sure that we have good line control, and make sure everybody's getting their free products that they love and use. So that is all I have for you today.
Okay, Tom has been assigned the resolution on this, so I want to give him first shot at any additional questions that we have.
Yes, thank you. In terms of just kind of overall crowd control, just because of the space, and we were just talking about fire, not as relevant with this, but in kind of the staff, like where will people kind of be leading in? Like, are you gonna have people kind of on the street kind of leading in? And then I see you have like the 4 lines, but it's not that long a space. Like if the lines get longer, kind of where are you kind of looking to kind of expand out, and how are you planning to manage that?
Yeah, so that's something that we're going to work with Kelly and team on as well. But the idea is that we'll have more than enough stanchions on site so that we can add to that if we see that the crowds are getting a little bit bigger. We'll also have security guards that we are bringing on in addition to the daytime staff to make sure that they can help with line control, and brand ambassadors who will be in charge of telling people kind of where to go, how to line up. So we will be amply staffed for that.
How many people roughly?
For staffing?
Yeah, just once again, not like, tie you down, but like, what do you have in mind for now?
Between 2 to 3 security guards that will be set for the whole day or both days. And then we will have in total brand ambassadors would be 20, but some of them are giving out product. So I think we have 4 or 5 that are line control specific, and then 2 floaters.
So really it's going to be 3 lines. I'm seeing this right? Because one of the sides is
yeah, there's still going to be a line for the photo moment, but that's just going to be moving at a slower pace than the other ones because it's one photographer versus having multiple options to get product on the different product walls. So we imagine that we're going to be getting through a couple hundred people in the photo during the day, but it's going to be a couple thousand through the actual product giveaway.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for that. Does the committee have any additional questions? Any information that we don't have?
What do you do with the waste? Do you have like a waste, like, was there plastic underneath this crap? And what are you doing about waste?
So yeah, we have, our team will be taking out all of the waste at the end, so fully trucking everything out, and then we'll be taking stuff out after we load in as well, but we will have one trash can there and a cleaning company that's going to be in charge of making sure that they're emptying that throughout the day. What we're giving out isn't really any like plastic heavy. It's not consumables. We're throwing things away. It's product in packaging, and we'll be giving the tote bag as well. So we're assuming that majority of people are going to put that right in the bag and take it off with them versus building up a lot of trash.
Okay, additional questions from the committee, things that have not been covered. In the
Yeah,
interest of
I have
time.
a,
Okay, Michael Kback.
yeah, the placement of this application seems to be taking up 60 to 75% of the most active used entrance and exit to the park. Am I Kelly, am I saying something that doesn't make sense here? And to me, that's going to present quite an obstacle to people entering and exiting the park at the number one entrance and exit. Has this been thought through? You see, when they give something away, forget about it. There's going to be multiple people who's going to be coming in and out wanting to get something for free. I'll be right there, right up in front with all of them. So I want to know that it's not going to, I think the choice of the location is terrible. That's just my input on this. Any comment on that?
Kelly, have you considered additional locations, I believe is the question.
Yeah, of course. We've chatted with the event producer, with Kate, about other locations in the park. Ultimately, we feel this is a good location. Our team, as always, will manage pedestrian flow as we always do. 6th Avenue entrance is about 50 to 60 feet wide. So we're really not concerned with the structure itself blocking folks coming in and out of the park. And as always, any of the chairs, tables that are normally living on the Fountain Terrace do find themselves in the surrounding LAs. Of course, the lawn will be there. So there's certainly plenty of space, as well as the upper terrace, which I know, Michael, you frequent with piano. A lot of places in the park that folks will still be able to hang out in and use.
I'm not worried about them hanging out. I'm worried about a blockage in the way, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I can understand. I see what Kback, I see what you're talking about as far as if those lines that Tom has also raised the issue on do escalate, that I think it's sort of the flow around the event, even though I know the design is to flow to the event. I think not seeing many other questions from the committee.
Mark my words, you're going to regret this location, and I'm going to watch. I'm going to be there to watch. Mark my words.
Okay, Kback, please direct your comments to the chair in the interest of time. Thank you. Murnau.
Well, just to follow up on Mike's question, how much space is there past the queue wing? So on the top and at the bottom.
So the Fountain Terrace, the kind of usable space within the Fountain Terrace is about 50 by 50. This footprint is, Kate, remind me, it's about 14 by 14. Is that correct?
The actual structure, yeah, the actual structure.
Yep.
Including the queuing.
So the queuing is a little bit additional, but the structure itself is about 14 by 14. So the
How
amount
much
of
is the queuing?
With the queuing, we're looking around 30 by 30.
30, so you have 20 on each side left then? No, not even 10 on each side left? That's not very
It's
much.
like 9, it's 9 on each because it's about 3 feet wide for ADA accessibility.
That's not a lot at all.
Thank
Or coming and going. Yeah, I think Michael Kback's point is well taken as far as I'm concerned.
Signage, you wanted to ask about signage?
Yeah, can you speak a little bit more to the signage? I think it's a little bit larger than what we've been okay with in the past. And I know I saw that it blends in pretty well with that Olay, like the color scheme, but we were sort of wondering if that might be reconsidered a little bit, just considering the size and scale of this.
Yeah, so we actually don't have the final design ready. We're going to work with Kelly to get approvals on all of that moving forward. This was just an example of, this is a DoorDash activation that we did before, so that is not the Olay colors or the Olay plan. It was just kind of showing the door options. But we were looking to have it be a monochromatic red, so it was going to be one color and not be too busy on the eye. But we do not have those graphics ready yet. That's something that Kelly is going to be approving along the way.
Yeah, I think that conditional on, for us, the signage and sort of the commercialization, I know that we've heard a lot about from this committee. That the smaller and the less noticeable the name will be, but the products being around everywhere will also be sort of an indicator there. But the committee definitely would, I think, as you know from our questionnaire, really wants the signage to be as minimal as possible. Okay, are there any other questions before I go to public comments? Charlie Baker.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much information you can share with us about any sort of compensation the park is receiving in exchange for this activation.
Very good question, Charlie. I didn't hear the answer to that.
You asked how much the compensation is?
Yeah.
I'm happy to chat with you guys offline on this. Preferably, we can chat more about that in September when we give our presentation. But if you have any questions about site fees or anything like that, or how Irene and I figure that out, we're happy to have that conversation with you separately.
Great. Thank you. I know that the competitive advantage it's always sort of a concern with public meetings, but thank you for making that available to us offline. All right. No one else has any questions? Let's take this to seeing none. You got one more question?
No.
Okay. Okay, going to public comment. Are there any members of the public who would like to make a comment? Please raise your hand now and wait to be recognized by the chair. All right. Seeing no member of the public wishes to make a comment. Let's go into business session. As a reminder, only members of the committee are allowed to speak now. We are in deliberation. And yeah, so how is everyone feeling about this with the understanding that Bryant Park is coming back to speak about the number, size, scope, scale of all of it? I know that some of the details here aren't set for the signs, so that's also something that we can include in our resolution if we want. And some of that language too, just sort of to set the table here.
Nice. Why is the resolution required now if all of these details are coming at some other time?
So the timing of this is that our next full board meeting falls prior to when this activation is going to happen. So this is the only time, which very much to Bryant Park's credit, Kelly has been very responsive, and we had a conversation months ago, and Kelly has been amazing. Thank you so much for making sure that we really don't have the same problems that we've had in the past where we see activations after the fact. So that is part of why Bryant Park, we haven't had that issue this year that we've had with some of the other parks in our district, is that they've been very, very proactive and responsive to letting us know to make sure that we've got time to weigh in and that things can be heard in development. But it does create some issues where it's a little bit half-baked, but it's also a chance for us to be included earlier in the process, so you can change it versus it's September 1st and everything's already been 3D printed and it's built. So it is a moment for a little bit more input too, which is just something to consider.
I mean, I'm just gonna be blunt about this. I mean, the location of to Mike's point, the location of this event is very deliberate. It's very deliberate. It reminds me of going through duty free at an airport. You know, you're being forced to go through the shopping mall before going into the park. This is a park. This is not JFK. We should, and this is sort of the problem with, excessive activation in a public space that is meant to be for people's enjoyment, is that we're forcing excessive commercialization of a public park. And that to me is just we're taking it too far. That's why I'm being very blunt about it, but that's how I feel.
Okay, I think that speaking to, I think that's a longer conversation for us to have in September as well. But
I
it
think
is very much a
specifically,
point
it's
taken
very-
specifically for this in this location. I
Yes,
think
it's-
that we have a.
Right,
Porter.
exactly. This is sort of,
What we've already said that we're gonna
Tom-
push this forward.
Tom,
Point of
Tom,
order.
Tom.
well, I mean,
He is allowed
specific
to
to this
speak.
activation, specific to this activation, I'm gonna say
Point of
that
order. We've
No, okay. Murnau, please continue, please finish your thought. Thank you.
specific to this activation, I'm just gonna say that the location is deliberate and to Mike's point, it's very pertinent because it blocks the entrance and you're forcing people to go through an area that they shouldn't have
Okay,
to.
so you've got concerns about the size of the footprint in this location, should this move forward in this location? So that might be something that we ask to adjust again, but overall size of activations, number of activations, amount of money. I will just say as a reminder for our new folks that Bryant Park does not accept any money from the city for the maintenance upkeep. Everything is fully funded in-house. It is funded in two separate ways. One is the assessment on the neighboring buildings. And that's the whole assessment process that runs through the city and how those taxes get paid in, and they have to vote with their board, and it's a whole thing. And the other way is they do activations and marketing events such as these. And so the arrangement that the corporation has set up with the city is a little bit different as far as that structure and the payback structure. We can get into that a little bit more, but just the basic idea is that they maintain all of the services. But again, in the interest of time, it is 7:30. Tom Ricardo.
So once again, I wasn't arguing about the size. I think that's a valid concern. I was just saying, we said that we'd push the conversation about the rest of the commercialization to another meeting.
Yeah, no, the overall commercialization, yes. But I do think that trying to limit it to like the actual in the middle of where there's only 10 feet or 9 feet on either side. And if you need 3 feet of clearance for ADA accessibility going to and from, so you have two wheelchairs simultaneously, that's 6 feet, and then you only have 3 feet of clearance there. So I think that and location is a fair point, and the signage. But it might just be something to include in this because again, it's a longer conversation with Bryant Park. So it's less, we don't want to take it out on these activations that are already in process.
On ADA part, it's not an ADA entrance though. Right, the
It's
ADA
not
entrance is
entrance, but I do think
Yeah.
that is the ADA requirements still apply as far as clearance, and that is what they brought up.
moving around the park.
Around to all parts of the park. It's not so you can just go down the stairs, it's so you can go to whatever corner, just like everybody else can.
The reason I'm saying that is I think there's an entrance discussion on the crowd control and then that space to move around. I think they're just two separate things. And I just want to make sure when we're writing it up, because I think the things we have now are, accept with conditions, provided they do cloud control, and we have concern with the position and is that correct me if I'm wrong? I'm just trying to make sure I write this up right.
Yeah, no, I understand your point that it's sort of the clearance from a crowd control perspective, and the clearance walking past, I think we can separate out the ADA stuff, if that is where we're going. Julia.
Yeah, so they said they have at least 7 staffers who are gonna just manage crowd control. So who's to say that they can't direct the line to start beyond that 9 feet clearance so that we don't have those feet of lines in the middle? Because they have human beings here and they could be like, okay, your next step, go over there. And maybe we could have broken stanchion around, something like that, just for them to explore different options that increases the leeway for pedestrians, but doesn't necessarily move
So
the activation at this
the
point.
lines go in a different, as opposed to the snake.
Because you
Yeah.
have 8 people staffing.
Yeah, I'm not sure entirely how that might work, but it's something to definitely
Again, I'm not an
include, but
events
yeah, like,
person,
I'm
but
not.
they shouldn't, they seem very well educated and informed, so I think they.
Yeah, the production there, definitely consideration. John Harris.
Seems to me the issue here, at the core, is do we approve this? Maybe with some conditions. or do we reject it?
Yep.
And I guess my thinking at this point, my hope is that we approve it because we, in effect, have been having a dialogue with Bryant Park. And saying at some point we would agree to a framework so that we can evaluate future events. And so I would say until we get to that point, I'm inclined, because of their good citizenship, that they've been, you know, upfront with us and pretty good with us, that we approve this one, but with the understanding that not only in due course, but sooner than later, that we develop a framework so we can better evaluate
Yeah.
these events.
I think that makes sense. Also, I'm just noting that it's 6 past the bottom of the hour here, so I want to try to move things forward. Normally, just for new members, what we hope to try to do moving forward is to run things through a parks events matrix that we have. I'm previewing this a little bit, but we are going to reevaluate our matrix, but this is currently what we have. I haven't circulated it in a while. But it is a way to sort of evaluate things or attempt to evaluate it based on different, I guess it's 13 different things. So that's just one way to think about these things generally. There are 13 things. I can run through them now. So the 13, just to have a sense of how we're thinking about this, is there's and again, this is up from previewing the new business here a little bit, but and hopefully you will join. But this is something to reevaluate as it has not been looked at for a while, as we try to get some more metrics and data from all of our partners in our parks. But so there's a footprint from a whole park to a small area, the timing, not appropriate for the season, day of week, time, appropriate for the season, day of week or time, duration, several days is, bad versus a few hours and out, setup breakdown. Is it loud, long, very long, or quick, quiet, and out? Bryant Park's usually pretty good about having it be extremely fast. Commercial and merchandising, the product promotion, or not at all commercial event, just an event. Signage, large, numerous signs, or signage is absent or limited. Impact on residents, interferes with the regular use, like how much the park does it take up. Or encourages regular use, like it's a draw. Impact on parkland and infrastructure. So this or trash, is there, potential for violence or disorderly stuff if there's alcohol involved, for example. Or is it sort of just regular wear and tear, not more people coming at all? It's just happened, surprise, you found a thing that there was no sort of I guess like promotional stuff about. We frequently ask about how events are being promoted. And like it always has to be returned to its original condition. Uniqueness, is it sort of a routine event? It doesn't really enhance the park experience. It's not sort of like special and something that could only happen in this site specific location where the park is integral to that experience. That, just bland is not great for us. And then, or it creatively activates the space, enhances it. Audience, a national audience is on like the negative side, and super hyper local interest on positive. Sound and noise very loud or not amplified at all, no sound. And then the public benefit. So there's commercial, for-profit, narrow audience, very commercial, or educational, nonprofit, cultural. Like sometimes we will pass on seeing some of the nonprofit events entirely, because they are just very small and don't even meet half the criteria. And the experience. Has it outgrown the venue? Has it generated complaints? And then on the positive side, it's something that we want to welcome back every year. It's something that we think is great and really enhances the experience. So that's sort of the matrix. I kind of get a sense of that running through it, but that's something we're looking to edit, but it's a framework for this. But again, as we begin to sort of engage in this conversation, it's sort of a September conversation to have. Yes, Christopher.
Given that the matrix is just what we have now and you just read through it, we can all kind of go through it and think about like what those things are. Why not just use the matrix as it is, approve and say, sure, but number one, the location is bad. Number two, going through those particular things. I don't know that we need to talk about every single number right now. I think, based on what we've said so far, we kind of know, and I just think maybe we just put it to the floor, like, I mean, obviously, we know it's completely commercial, so that's bad, and, you know, it's not coming back, it's not like it's recurring, so we don't need to make a comment on that
Yeah,
issue.
and
But I just think that for everybody on the committee, we feel like the matrix that we have is good enough for now,
Yeah.
and just the points where it, is like absolutely zero, we should just make note of that and make sure that, like, just say, we
Those were
don't
part
want
of the
these to come back to the committee.
Yeah.
Like, so, yeah, the location is pretty bad, the flow is pretty bad, it's probably gonna be too crowded at that entrance or exit. And then, what are the other concerns?
commercialization of
It's
the merchandising.
strictly commercial and the signage has the potential to be too big.
It
So
is
our
for Fashion
recommendation.
Week, so there is a little bit of interest around that,
Our
but, yes, I
recommendation,
think that
I don't think
the,
Fashion Week's a public benefit to anyone,
yeah,
but
it's a national thing.
I just think that, like, you know, noting those, what, 3 or 4
And
points.
so are you proposing,
I
so
propose-
not making a motion, we are discussing whether or not to do and approve with these conditions, speaking to the concerns that we have already discussed.
Right, and then,
Okay.
you know, if anybody else has any other concerns that are along
So we
those
can also-
particular
we can add
lines,
those in.
add them in and just give them time to write up.
Yeah, Tom is on this, and John Harris, is that sort of in line with what you were thinking that we would do?
Yeah, I guess, you're right, these are the factors we've always considered. By the way, for the new members, we go from 1 to 5. So at the end of the day, equally weighted, so we may adjust that in the future, but currently they're all equally weighted. We typically come up with a number. 1, bad, 5 is, to use the language, 1 is very bad, 5 are very good. Okay, but the element, in this particular discussion is what you pointed out, Lily, and that is that this particular park is uniquely, well, not uniquely, but it's heavily dependent, solely dependent on these activities for its revenue. It's not.
So,
Can I-
so I will note
Fine.
that most of the money for the whole park does come from the Winter Village and from the SC.
Right.
This is
So-
the cherry on top.
This is sort of
Yeah,
a thing to
yeah,
know,
I agree.
again,
I agree.
conversations to
That's
have.
understood. We can
Conversation
cover-
to
that's a
have.
conversation
We're
we're gonna
coming
have.
back.
I'm just saying that what's missing on this matrix is the revenue component. And I would
Well,
propose
yes.
in the future that
Okay,
we
okay.
include that as.
To be,
that's another topic.
point of inquiry for later, and it is
Just
also
trying-
great because you.
Right, yeah. Sure.
Okay, we got 2 more hands. We don't quite have a motion yet, but in the interest of time, Catherine. We've not heard from
I
you.
just
Weigh in
wanted
on-
I just wanted to bring it to the attention, and maybe Kelly can speak to this, but this is not the
We're
first
in business
activation.
session now, so it's just our business conversation now.
Okay, so my understanding, I can almost, this is not the first activation in this particular location of the park for Bryant Park. So I trust some of their judgment. I do think that times have changed in terms of the level of crowds that are now moving through the park. And I just wanted to say that I don't think this is the first time that they've had an activation in this particular area. And that because of it's the widest opening, the flow through that area is, even during Winter Village, much better than some of the east side and west side. The smaller areas are harder to get into, but the larger area is really quite an open space. So I just wanted to add that.
Great, thank you so much, Catherine. And Tom, your resolution.
I only had my hand up to remind you to let me ask, like make sure I had the resolution right. So, I'd rather wait until the end, and if this is the end, it's fine. I just was making
This
sure.
is that moment. We are looking at, I believe, do we have a motion on the floor?
I'll make the motion.
Well,
I'll make
we
the
want to hear
motion.
that there's a motion. I think Tom is gonna cross-reference it, so someone needs to make a motion and then we
Oh,
can
okay.
determine what's gonna go into it.
Because I'd make the motion to accept with conditions.
Yes.
Yes, to approve with conditions, and then the things that have been discussed, is that
So,
sound good to
and-
everyone?
And just to make sure I have it clear, and this is just to get done, crowd control, space, and then crowd control are the main conditions. And then,
Signage.
what was that last one? I'm so sorry. I heard
Signage. The size of the
signage, commercialization signage.
No, the signage size is separate from commercialization, but there are two, those are two.
Those are both concerns.
Okay.
That will go into. Also, just a reminder, the meeting is also going to be on YouTube after this, noting for you and other members of the public and new committee members that you can also use the transcript feature, which can be great and helpful at reminding you of different points that have not maybe missed yet. So,
Hold it.
Oh,
I have
okay,
a question or a comment or a.
Do you have it? We have we're going into what we're discussing to put into the resolution now. Is it
That's
related
exactly
to what?
I want to contribute to.
Okay, great.
May I?
Yes, please.
Thank you very
And
much.
then we're gonna bring it to a vote in a second.
Okay, so if the resolution says exactly we approve, unless they do certain things, and we should specify, maybe reduce the footprint by changing it 190 degrees so that the longitudinal axis is switched with the horizontal axis, and there's less blockage of that front area, and then it would be fine for my estimation.
Okay, I think that they said that it was 14 feet squared, but I do think that putting in something about looking at changing the footprint
That's
or
just
the
the-
structure itself.
That's just
We could probably put in.
I'm talking about the whole.
Yeah, the overall footprint of the lines around it too. No, I see what you mean. Is that, I think we can put into the resolution a question about changing the overall flow, right? Does anyone have any objections to that going into this resolution? John Harris.
No, I have no objection.
Okay, great.
What, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Actually, if Todd's still on there, I'm surprised I haven't heard him talk about the video or the image.
I think Todd is gonna save some of his image questions for
No, I'm
September.
talking about, so we don't care about it in this one.
I think they cover the image and likeness and like the photo moment pretty extensively because it's a professionalized photo. It's an opt-in, it's specific, and so
But usually Todd is.
he's very proactive about
Yeah, I
it.
just need to back up. Opt-in hasn't been a sufficient statement in the past, but.
It sounds, yeah.
As long as Todd is not.
I think
objecting, then-
Todd's not objecting, but I do think that we can
Okay.
put language in
Okay.
to make sure that we reaffirm that this committee,
The Todd amendment.
we're making, we take care of each other's pet projects
You'll
here.
figure that out eventually.
Okay. Yeah, we're talking about image and likeness and making sure that the language is included, which it is because of the professional photography opt-in.
Well, I couldn't really hear much on that point, but obviously they should get the permission and be quite explicit about it. So yes, we want language.
Yes, okay, great. That will go in as well. Tom, I'm sure you're taking notes as the transcript is also taking notes. And as our tech chair, you will be more equipped than anyone to make sure that we have all of that. So do I have a motion?
Yeah, you
Do I have a second though? Yes. Okay, great. Vote.
All right, Charles,
Yes.
Athena.
Yes.
Julia,
Yes.
Catherine,
Yes.
Sean,
Yeah.
Libby,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Todd,
Todd, yes.
BJ.
Yes.
I am a yes.
Okay, okay, with that, the motion passes. And thank you very much for coming, Kate. Really appreciate it and really appreciate, your flexibility in the design and giving us sort of the schematics as this, develops, going forward.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, on to our next Bryant Park, activation. The Amazon Prime screening, which Christopher has been assigned. And just as a little bit of background on this, I'm not sure, Kelly, who we have presenting here, but I know that in my conversations with Kelly and the park, they did note that they made some changes to their overall programming schedule to make sure that the park wasn't going to be used as much. It's one of their free events. All events are free, but it was one of their like normal yoga programming things. It was a real conversation. So they really do weigh these. It is a sort of, it's a balancing act between the funding and programming and sort of commercialization. So again, something to discuss in September. But Kelly, who do we have presenting for us now?
Yes, I have Stu Wisman here on the call. He's presented to you guys before. And just to reiterate what Libby said, Wednesdays are our normal lawn yoga day. That class has since been canceled to accommodate this event. Irene and I will share more about that in September, but did want to reiterate that to this group.
Okay, great. Stu, do you want to take us away with the presentation?
Sure. Let me share my screen and can everybody see that?
Yes. Also, if you could just make sure that when you describe the event, that you also describe what's on the slides for the visually impaired. Sorry. That's fine. Want to make sure. Yep, we've got your screen.
Okay, this is the launch of season 3 of the Amazon Prime show, The Summer I Turned Pretty.
I don't think you have the right thing up.
No, it's possible. Hang on.
That's the evacuation plan.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me see if I can get that. Can you
There
see
you
it?
go. Yeah.
Okay. This is the season 3 launch. Let me take you through the deck and then I'll go through some of the points individually. Has an overview. There's one small component that we're adding to this and the schedules. The overview is that this is a successful show entering its 3rd season. We are doing the world premiere of episode 1 and 2 of season 3. We are doing this with the identical footprint of Bryant Park's movie night. So there's very little additional things being built. It's all being used on the existing infrastructure that's already in the park. We are presently working with Bryant Park to set up a way where anybody who wants to attend can RSVP in advance, just as a way to help Bryant Park and our security estimate the size of the crowd. In addition to dealing with it that way, we will also have the ability to accommodate people if they come and they don't pre-register on site.
Great.
The schedule is pretty straightforward. It's very similar to the movie schedule. We will load in, on the overnight like most events do, to ensure everything that we're doing is inside the perimeter of the walls around the lawn and the track around the lawn before the park begins to get busy in the morning. The people will, it's unlikely that people will have substantial queuing before 5 o'clock, but if they do, we will have additional security on site to address that. Let me go slower. This is a copy of the map that we're using. The only elements that you can see are in pink. If you can see my cursor, they're on the left and the right of the stage. Those are 2 photo areas that are being built on the gravel track. And those are the only 2 real components that we're building inside. We will have queue lines for that go along the walls on the outside of that to make sure that there's no restricted access around the field. The only other area we have that you can see here is the VIP area, which is for press, talent, actors from the show, and Amazon and sponsors.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you just describe a little bit more about the physical location for those who are visually impaired who might be part of this meeting?
The locations are immediately stage right and stage left of the stage, but pushed out as far away on the outside of the track as possible in order to minimize any obstruction for any access through.
Great,
The
thank you.
VIP area is on the southern part of the lawn, allowing us to access a VIP line directly from 40th Street straight into the park, giving them an entrance that's separate from the general public entrance, just as a way for facilitating their entry.
Great.
This is a rendition of what the photo walls will look like. The flowers that you see here are actual live flowers in the backdrop. So, but they're relatively small footprints on this, and we're working out the details that hopefully that when people RSVP, they can also, if they want to have photographs taken, they can also include that in that without requiring a separate registration or disclaimer for when they use if they want to have their pictures taken. And then last we have the schedule, and the schedule again is very similar to a Bryant Park movie night. We'll load in the park during the designated hours, probably between 5 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock in the morning, to make sure everything is in there. We will open the lawn at 5 o'clock. We will start showing, we will go live on the screen at 6 o'clock, but without audio. I'm sure you guys are all familiar in movies when they have like those trivia questions that come up on the screen, just as a way to entertain the guests before the program starts. At 8 o'clock, our program starts. It runs straight through to the end. It's difficult for us to tell you exactly what time it is because they're still doing some minor edits on the programming itself, but we expect it to end slightly after 10 o'clock. Hopefully, with the help of Bryant Park, we should be able to have everyone out of the park by 10:30, where we will immediately go into the load-in. One of the good things about this event is that there's just not that much equipment being brought into the park that isn't normally there. So hopefully we should be able to get out within 2.5 hours. And I'd like to open the floor for any specific questions or concerns that anyone has.
Great. Just a reminder to everyone that it is almost 8 o'clock when I had hoped for us to be out of here. We have one more marketing thing after this. So just we can keep our questions and concerns like very to the point. If there's anything that Stu has not covered, we can ask it. Otherwise, please save your comments for our conversation in our business session. Christopher, I will give you the lead as you are writing up the resolution. Do you have any questions?
Just could you go over the signage again? The size of it? What will the signage be? If there's like it looks like you have where the live flowers are. How big is that? That kind of stuff.
I have those. Bear with me for 1 second. The overall dimensions on this are 14 feet wide and 9 feet tall. So they're not particularly large. And they're also not heavily branded.
I don't think
Where does that go?
I don't think the committee agrees with that description of the signage. It does look like there is the T-Mobile logo also there as opposed to just the name of the show. And there also looks like there is a Prime logo at the bottom. Is that
Yes.
sort of where those logos are going to be? And do you know the size of those logos in addition to just the text of the summer I turned pretty? Which I guess I could see.
I can get you the exact percentage of the signage of the lettering.
Yeah. I do think that as a step and repeat, just want to acknowledge that step and repeats for photos generally do have lots of logos on them. That is sort of what the backdrop tends to be. It is not always just like pretty flowers and you just get a professional photo with the pretty flowers. So just acknowledging that, but also the logos themselves, that's not the actual title of the show, might be more of an issue, for this committee, just in terms of size. If you could get us that information, that would be great. There's been more pushback, from lots of directions about the size, but yeah, the 14 feet by 9 feet for a sign is, for this committee, extremely large. I know you're not in the room, but there's a lot of reacting happening here, so.
And most of it will be flowers.
Is most of it going to be flowers?
All
Is
of
a
it.
question
The
that we
floor
have.
wall is 14 by 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the actual thing.
The actual lettering, I think, and sort of the footprint of the lettering of each of those logos, I think is something that
Well,
we.
the scenic wall is 18 by 9, so it's even bigger, right?
Yeah, and there are two of them. Okay. Okay, but so additional questions. Gail, it's about a question?
Yeah, could you go back to the map on where these are gonna be? Sorry. So are they, I mean, that's pretty big, no? Is it gonna be like? Is it gonna be blocking any walkways, or is it kind of
Yeah.
within the?
The only reason why it was drawn that way is that if we had put the actual depth of the sign at scale in this drawing, you wouldn't see it.
Okay.
The drawing,
Okay.
the wall itself is only 1 foot thick, but if we had drawn a corresponding line that was 1 foot, you couldn't see the pink.
Okay,
Not
okay.
talking about the width, though, we're talking about the length.
I was
The
looking at
length.
the
Yeah.
map.
Is the length accurate?
It is.
To scale? Okay, so the length is to scale where it looks like it's that sort of, the corner entrance. Or not entrance, the corner of that lawn.
That's on
But
the gravel track, not on the lawn itself.
In a movie setup, are we that worried that their signs would be that big? Like, would they want to distract from the screen?
I mean, I think it's more of a question of,
Yeah.
just, I don't know their intentions, but I think that's more of a question. But okay, questions for Stu, and then we're gonna go to members of the public. It is 8:02. I'm gonna get us all out of here. Okay. Are there any members of the public who, seeing no more questions for you, Stu? Thank you so much for your presentation and for answering all of our questions and getting back to us about the signage, which has become more of an ever increasing issue on this committee. Members of the public, I see Charles Nye. You may now speak. Ooh.
Hello, thank you, Chair. I was wondering with Prime Video having audio description with their TV series and other in-house movies already there, I was wondering, is there a way that their audio description could be offered to patrons who are blind or visually impaired? Also, is it possible to have subtitles for those who are hard of hearing? Also, is it possible that there is going to be a separate line for people who have disabilities to line up, or seating for those with disabilities? And sorry, I do apologize. Unfortunately, I have forgotten my last question. I do apologize.
Okay, thank you, Charles. Stu, would you be able to answer some of those handicap accessibility questions?
I can. The handicapped entrance, which is immediately to the right of our VIP entrance, is the standard handicap entrance into the park. There is an area that we've worked out with Bryant Park along the steps up to the library, which is the easiest place to access for those with mobility problems, to watch and not obstruct other people that are there, that it's already been designated. When it comes to assistance for the visually impaired, that's a tricky one. I certainly can ask Amazon whether or not they're doing that. It may, in our case, be easier to do something for the hearing impaired, and I will talk to Amazon to see if they want to set up either an infrared system similar to like what they would do in a Broadway house, that if a person has problems hearing, that we could do it that way. But as of right now, we're planning on using the same video presentation screen that they use for movie night and the same audio that they use for movie night.
Okay, thank you.
I remembered my last question.
Okay. Sorry, the questions from the public have ended. But Stu, I did have one follow-up to that, based on the member of the public who's asked a question, is that I know in a fixed theater, to be ADA compliant, you have to have seating in multiple locations so that someone who has to be seated the whole time can see over people if people are standing. And it has to be in more than just one location. Do you have more than just, I know you said the steps by the park. Are there other handicap, sorry if I missed this, are there other handicap sort of viewing areas that create that in just more than one location to be as inclusive as possible here and also to be as similar to a physical theater as you would be since it is a flexible design?
Sure. I mean, originally, I mean, again, it's the entire back length. So it literally goes from one side of the field on the north side to one side of the field on the south side. But I'm sure we can create an area probably on the gravel track on the north side in an area that's that can accommodate almost any disability or any, you know, any size wheelchair or anything that would require that. We try to keep that around the outside. So obviously that just the height of a wheelchair doesn't block a person who's sitting on a blanket on the lawn.
On the ground. Yeah, no, definitely
May I-
appreciate that.
May I-
Appreciate the,
Bryant Park side, we also use the upper terrace, which is at the top of the stairs, also an excellent viewing area, and that is ADA compliant.
yeah, just want to make sure that there's many different vantage points, that it's not just limited to one area would be fantastic from an inclusivity perspective. Okay, are there any other questions from the public or comments rather from the public? Okay, seeing no one who has asked, so has already commented, I will now move this into business session. Again, everything still stands. It is 8:07. How are we feeling? Christopher, do you want to kick us off?
I mean, I would just be happy to run through matrix because I think that's what we should do.
Great.
The footprint seems to be pretty large. It's almost the entire, it is the entire lawn plus now we know the upper terrace. So that's 2. Timing is the same as any movie night, so I just give it a neutral 3. Duration, same as any movie night, neutral 3. Setup, same as any movie night, neutral 3. Is it commercial? It's entirely commercial. And if you haven't watched the first 2 seasons of the show, I don't even know why you'd be interested in the third. So that's a
Only
1.
the first few episodes.
You've seen.
I'm saying only the first few episodes, not even the whole season.
Yeah.
Well,
I know.
it is a premiere.
But
Yes, continue.
at any rate, it's niche. Entirely commercial. Is it signage? We've determined the signage is quite large, so that's also a 1. What's the other one?
Impact on
Impact,
residents.
sorry. Impact is, I feel like it's probably gonna be slightly higher than a regular movie night. Because it's regular
It's
movie
in
night
a
plus
VIP, the
other
VIP
things,
entrance.
VIP. So rather than just give it the normal neutral 3, I would give it 2. Impact on the park is the same as a movie night. 3, the sound, I would also give same as a movie night. The audience is whoever watches the show, or might want to, so that's pretty narrow. 1, and then the public benefit, no public benefit. And the experience, I don't know what we say about the experience when, what do we do with the experience? It's like recurring? So it's a movie night,
It's
same
not,
city movie
I'd
night.
say it's similar but different. I do think that it's a
Movie.
premiere. I think that there's novelty in that.
Where?
I think
It-
public
it's-
benefit would probably give it a 2.
What? Public
No, I
benefit
think
is
it's,
the
I think
space,
that, I think that there's,
Right.
I think that it is dynamic and unique, as in, like, by definition, it is a premiere.
The premiere gives it public benefit sense?
No, but on the uniqueness, the uniqueness.
I don't know, again, that's why I don't.
Again, we're gonna redo
That's
the
why I don't like
matrix.
the Matrix, but at least we.
Which is why you're on the committee to redo it.
We're
Yes.
on the Matrix to make sure that we don't argue. So that means it has 26 out of 65. I don't know, that's supposed to mean.
We
So
don't,
the problem with
that
the
is something also
Right.
later to discuss.
But I think the thing that we can see when we run through the matrix is, concerns about how commercial it is, concerns about the footprint. We should, I assume, approve this, but be upset that they're canceling a yoga class and, I think that's about
I
it.
do want to add that because much of the setup is already done, it's already prearranged. I think a lot of people really do like the movie nights, a lot of people do attend. That is something that is sort of like a minimal impact. It's basically the same as what already kind of happened. So it's a little bit like just swapping something out. So I think that in the grand scheme of things is better than something else that might exist. I just want to acknowledge that this is not blocking a bunch of stuff. It is something that is sort of already built in that the public really does like and respond to. And with sort of a novel way. But yes, if you haven't seen seasons 1 and 2, this is very commercial for a specific thing. There, so.
Well, to take that deal.
And if you want to take that
Which
yoga
is
class, it is,
rescheduled, right?
it is not rescheduled and it's just removed.
Oh,
That is a other point. So while addressing one of our concerns of too much activity of all kinds, including things that are just programmed, we've really gotten a lot of feedback about just too much, just enough with the Broadway and the jugglers, and just it's a little suffocating. Not that we don't want it and appreciate it, just maybe a little just slightly less, just a percentage less. That this is sort of taking away one of the things that is very popular and favors some commercial instead. Again, they don't receive any money from the park. Okay, Tom Ricardo and Arnold. And then it is 8:11, and we have one more thing, and it's a different park, so it's going to be a longer conversation, just keeping that in mind.
So with the tickets, do we know the EULA of the tickets? And why I say this is, looking at Amazon, there's going to be no data collection no video, no signing of the rights of the people, which would be unusual for an Amazon event.
That is a great question, Tom. Again,
especially with AI training?
No problem.
None of that is
Stu,
going to be.
Stu, can you speak to that as far as the data collection policy of people who pre-register for the events and whether or not their information is going to be kept on file?
All I know is that the company that I believe is doing this, which is an Eventbrite, is a third-party company that just does this. I can't speak for Amazon on what if they get access to that data or not, but that's something I can certainly find out.
Okay, yeah, I think my understanding is that Eventbrite, if you are the host, you do have access to all of that. But if you could come up with like a clear data retention policy, or hopefully, I think for this committee, lack of one, I think that would be something that we would appreciate from a public use perspective. Thank you, Tom. Does anyone else have any other comments as we look at this? Important morning.
I was just gonna say, this sounds to me a lot like the same resolution as the last one, with approved with conditions.
Which case, Tom, just right both.
Christopher. All right. Is that how everyone feels? John, Harris?
Yeah, I was just gonna make one comment, basically for the new veterans, and that is, this may appear, and I agree, as limited public, with not any public benefit. But I promise you will see other ones that have less public.
Yeah.
So
In the
you
grand
would
scheme of
have to come up with -3 or 4, some others. So just keep that in mind.
It is, yeah. In the grand scheme of things, this is.
To the extent that it raises money for a park that needs it, there is a public benefit.
Right.
It's
in
swapping
that
out,
sense.
there's really little.
Yeah, something that-
Literally, so you kind of pick,
I know, Chris,
To the
this
extent it gets
makes your
young
part very.
teenage girls involved in parks and public spaces, I guarantee you they're not going to Bryant Park otherwise, other than the Winter Village and the Summer I Turned Pretty.
Yeah,
So like if we want them
diverse
involved,
audience,
yeah.
I think the diverse audience is a really good
That
point.
quite frankly don't really care about parks at this point in their life, so let's get them into a park.
Or other fun, other movies that are maybe for an older crowd. This is a little bit of a diverse audience. I think that's a great point. But yeah, so as we keep all of that in mind, there are first events that we see. Also, please keep in mind too, that Bryant Park gets a lot of applications for activations. These are just the ones that they've said yes to. They've said no to Kelly. I think you will have the data for this, but at least like 16% maybe of like the things that people try to ask for. But a lot of them, regardless of things that are just not appropriate for what anyone sort of wants as stewards of this park. So I don't know if you want to speak to that, Kelly, of the things that do come in or not. But
We can speak to that a bit in September.
okay, great. So yeah, but just a reminder for everyone that as we have this conversation long term. So do I have a motion? Gotta say the words of what the motion is for.
Motion to proceed with the recommendation to accept the application with conditions.
So approve with conditions, and the conditions that we just outlined is the motion. Is there a second?
Yes.
Great.
Take it
Thank
to a
you. New
vote.
member, it's taking it to a vote. Woohoo!
Dolly. Tina. Julia.
Yes.
Catherine.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Libby.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Gail.
Yes.
Plus.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Todd.
Yes.
And BJ.
Yes.
And I am a yes, a reluctant yes.
We're looking, but a yes nonetheless. Great. Okay, thank you all. Thank you, Stu, for coming and presenting. Thank you, Kelly, for staying this long. We really appreciate you being here. I think Irene, if you were still on the call. Thank you, and really look forward to discussing in more depth in September. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, so next, we have Madison Square Park. We have an event proposal from them. First, I would just like to take a minute and welcome to our call. We have Holly, who's executive director. We've got McCullough, who you'll have to tell me the exact role, but I would like to welcome Vincentio. She's still on the call?
Yes. I'm Vincenzia Fasulo.
Vincentio, oh, sorry, you.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Welcome to Community Board 5, to the Parks and Public Spaces and Environment Committee. We are very happy to have you. And without further ado, please present on this proposal for a US Open activation in, I think, September.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. I'll do my best to make this quick, as I know we are running out of steam here. Okay, so just a quick background for anyone new. I know we've planned to discuss all of this in detail in September, which is great. Madison Square Park has a license agreement with the City of New York that permits 4 specifically marketing-focused activations in our park and up to 5 private events in the year. And those combined events make up a considerable amount of the operating budget that goes to fund everything that happens in Madison Square Park. And we do not receive a cent from any other sources, no money from the city, the state, etc. And just to echo something was just said, I personally receive 1 to 2 proposals for marketing events per week throughout the entire year. And 95% of those are rejected for various reasons. Setup, design, budget, namely are the major reasons. So we take this very seriously and only entertain proposals that meet our criteria for budget and things that we do think will be well received. So the plan that I'm about to present to you is for a US Open viewing experience. And I will preface this by saying there are still elements that are being fine-tuned and finalized. I'm coming to you very early with this proposal because I know there's no meeting over the summer. And so sometimes just in the way that these activations work, things do happen on a short turnaround. So we decided that since this was the last meeting for September, we wanted to bring to you the preliminary designs that we had before us so that you could have your moment to chime in. And the other interesting thing to note is that the US Open is consistently the thing that we hear the most from the public through just anecdotal interactions, but also through surveys that we've done for the past several years about free programming that the public would like to see in the park. Here are just a few quotes that we've pulled from the 2024 community survey that was done by the Conservancy. When you used to show US Open tennis matches, we used to gather with all our friends and it was truly special. More pop-up art and theater events, US Open viewing screens was requested. They used to have the US Open tennis on the big screens with bleachers, seating, but I don't think they do this anymore. It was really fun. maybe they can also show movies in the summertime. So years ago, it's been a long time since the US Open was on public view in the park, and it was a much embraced event. So we're excited about the opportunity to bring that back. This is a rough site plan. The two areas you see here highlighted are the gravel areas of Madison Square Park across from Shake Shack. That's typically where we host activations. The gravel surface is more resilient than grass. Obviously, it can handle materials placed on it, foot traffic, etc., much better than grass, and can be restored completely back to its original condition following the activation. So this activation has two elements. The first one is an AI-powered table tennis game. It's free. It's open to the public. Basically, there are table tennis surfaces. People can play, and there's a screen tracking the speed and the location of the ball, much like when you watch tennis and they have those sort of graphics on the screen that delineate, the speed of Federer's serve or whatever. I've seen this in action. I actually first met the team who designed this in Texas, and over a year ago said, wow, we would love to bring tennis back to Madison Square Park. So we've been trying to do this for a very long time and are hopeful that this will be something that is much celebrated. So we'll have up to 4 table tennis surfaces on one side with screens that the screens that are tracking the play will convert to showing the matches when those are on. And then the second zone below where the number 2 is just going to be for match viewing. So there'll be movable seating. People who are at Shake Shack with Shake Shack's own furniture can sit and watch. And it will be obviously all free and open to the public. This is a rendering, again, high level. We are still finalizing exact elements and sizes. I'm happy to communicate with you as to the final dimensions, but this is happening in September, and I don't know that there's a meeting before September 2nd. Screen here where people would be viewing. This is the element on Surface 2. The schedule, the project would load in on the 2nd and 3rd, be live from the 4th to the 7th, and load out on the 8th and 9th. And some of the key elements, I know, Libby, you've been emailing about questions. Just to confirm, the amplified sound here is really only during the matches, and that is sound from the tennis television screen. So it's not like a concert where you have large speakers. The speakers that they're using are highly directional and concentrated to the gravel area only. We will have ample trash and recycling receptacles, as well as staff collecting litter throughout the area. We are in discussions with them about, in addition to the IBM logo, having placement of QR codes that allow people who are enjoying to make a donation to the Conservancy. Being in the park and at events that we host, we still like to help educate people about how the Conservancy works. And many people are not aware that it is a fully independently funded organization. And when they hear that, they're like, oh, wow, this is great. I come here every day and I walk my dog. I'd love to give $5 or whatever. There'll be no unauthorized photography. Typically, before the activation opens on day 1, the team will capture any footage they need so that there's no need to be photographing the public unnecessarily. And there was a question Libby sent over about lighting. There's no plan for any additional spotlights that would be flooding out beyond the site, beyond just the immediate illumination of the screens. That is my contact information. I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Just on the lighting, my question was about that IBM logo looks illuminated, and also it is gigantic. But it was both the illumination of it as well.
Do you have a question?
In the rendering, is that IBM sign illuminated? Is that also a screen on this massive sort of screen the way that if you're out on the US Open grounds, there's many activations that are sort of like this, but that is sort of expected in a commercial environment. I'm just wondering about, is this lit up or is it flat?
As far as I know, it's not a lit screen. It's a painted sign. I can confirm that, but again, the final design is still being worked on as we speak.
Okay. Okay. Questions from the committee, Athena?
On the schedules, how late, depending on the games, how late do you expect these showings to go till? I see the installation ends just before midnight on the 7th, but in those interim days, how late?
Just go pretty late.
The matches
Yeah.
go very late.
So the latest match starts at 7 p.m. So if the match goes beyond 10 p.m., we will turn off the volume. As you know, Madison Square Park does stay open until midnight in the summer. Shake Shack is open until midnight. There are people in the park actively using the park. And so it would be much like an average day. We would, as I said, turn off audio at 10 p.m.
Okay. I appreciate that change from the questionnaire. John Harris.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Following up on the sound, I understand no sound after 10. I was copied on the email exchange that you primarily were having with Libby. At one point, you were referring to a lower amount of sound after 10. My question to you is, was that an error or rethink in how you wanted to approach this event?
We sensed that was a concern of yours, so made the offer to just turn off the sound. I think an extensive inquiry into the length of matches, what we've been told is that many of them will be done before 10 anyway. But if that is not the case, we can use subtitles after 10.
Okay, all right. Thank you. There's a hardcore commitment. No sound after 10. Just want to be clear on that.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Could you, I believe IBM is the only sponsor. But with the exception of the signage, it's my impression that you're not selling IBM products or promoting any particular IBM services. My question to you is that a correct understanding? Or not?
AI Sports tabletop tennis is powered by an AI tool. So that is actually what is being showcased. IBM is also, sorry?
I'm sorry, my apologies. Go ahead, please.
IBM is also a partner in sponsoring the US Open. USTA, IBM, and the broadcaster would be ESPN, who are all sort of a collective here, but IBM is the lead.
So, does that mean that participants, people in the park there will be something that will connect IBM to AI? I'm just trying to understand.
Connect
What's IBM's a strategy here? Is it just purely name branding, or are they saying, here's the new products that IBM is responsible for, and we in effect, this is a commercial process, we're pitching products. That's what and services. That's what I'm getting to.
So IBM has a deep connection to many different sports and uses this technology to collect data, to provide real-time analysis when you're watching a sporting event, from baseball to tennis to F1, Formula One. So this particular interactive game here is not necessarily something that a regular person would buy to have at their house. But it is showcasing this technology that does power a lot of the sports that we consume as people who watch tennis. And so this is the reason to link this experience to the US Open.
Okay, so that means basically when people leave, they will make the connection between this technology and IBM. Next question. I understand there's a setup at the beginning of this 7-day period, and then at the end The question is, will there also be nightly setups and breakdowns? I ask that because you will have a lot of technology there. You'll have TVs and the AI equipment. Can you speak to how that will be? What happens to that equipment at night? I understand you have security people there. Will it just be there? Or will you have to break some of that down? And can you speak also what happens if there's inclement weather? What impact would that have on that process?
Sure, that's a great question. And as someone who has been in the park at 2 o'clock in the morning for many of these activations, I do not have any desire to be there more than necessary in the middle of the night. So to answer this question, these cubes that you see here on the screen actually have gates that slide down to close them off at night and protect from the elements. So there's a overhang over all of these screens so that if it does rain, they are protected. But there will be no trucks or, major movement loading in and loading out happen in the evening hours.
Okay, good. And final, how would you define the public benefit or the purpose of this overall event? I know there was a sentence or so in it, but could you elaborate on why you feel that this is such a great benefit? Because you seem to be saying that to the park users as well as to the public at large of New York City.
Yeah, I mean, I think you go back to the sentiment that we hear repeatedly from the public, that public viewing and cheering for a major flagship New York event is very special. And people remember that was done years ago in the park and love to see that happen. I'll also say that this activation will be the highest paying activation to come to Madison Square Park in decades. And I, like I said, I work really hard to make sure I only bring to the table proposals that have all of the elements we want to see with respect to budget and, public benefit. And I think that this one certainly does. IBM is also a new partner or a new neighbor on the park. They have 3,000 employees that now are part of our community. And they are learning about the park. They are learning about the Conservancy. They're starting to, become supporters of what we do. And I think that is a great thing. The reason Madison Square Park, frankly, looks the way it does today is from the original corporations who came together to transform it from a derelict dust bowl into what you have today. So I think it's really important to be looking to the future because, those folks who are designing AI in the 13th floor of the building are the future stewards of some of our public spaces. So it's great that we can engage them now and celebrate a fun few nights in the park watching a sport.
But I'd also just like to add, hello, that the ping pong tables are free and open to the public. So that's the other thing is we expect that that'll be a really fun thing for people coming through the park to be able to play ping pong on the 4 tables that are being provided.
IBM also offered to donate those tables if there's the community center or any place in the community that you all might know of that could use them. That is an option as well, because these can be upcycled later.
Would you follow up with, do you have active plans to do that? Or is that something that just came to mind right now?
It did not just come to mind. They've already offered and we've started thinking about where potentially they could go. But I know that you mentioned you work with a lot of organizations in the neighborhood, so be happy to take any introductions you might have.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll make a note.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll make a note of that. They're,
All involved in that.
yeah, definitely.
Following the last question, I know every time we have a presentation, we try to get from you how much money. I'm not going to ask that question today. What I would like to know is if you use your average of the 4 or 5 events you have each year, if you think of the average amount for each event, how much more will this event be than that?
Nice try.
Well, there is in a prior resolution from when this is over a decade ago, when the US Open was there, the activation, they do write the actual number of the prior years.
Or the inflation.
And then inflation from 2013 to now, I hope that this is a mid six-figure number as opposed to a low six-figure number.
Okay.
But
good.
that's my hope.
Yeah. Can they confirm that and also speak to what percentage over the average event this would represent?
I'm not gonna talk numbers right now, honestly, but if you'd like to discuss with Holly later, you know, we could give you more of a percentage breakdown, but I don't think it's appropriate right now to discuss that as this is still being finalized, as is the budget.
Okay, but you said the language you used again, you said a significantly more or?
Yes, a meaningful increase over any other activation that I've certainly brought into the park, but for the past, I would say 2 decades.
Oh, okay.
With confidence, I can say that. So,
Great.
It's not a small increase.
Thank you.
I would also just add to that, that the sponsor used to be American Express when we did it, whatever, 10, 15 years ago. And they also took over most of the park. So we're not quite comparing it to that because we very intentionally did not want the screen to be, you know, throughout the whole park with the whole viewing on the oval lawn. It used to really take up the whole park, as you may recall.
Not true. Not true. Not true, Holly. Not true. Not true.
Yeah, but
Michael Kayback, hang on for just a moment. We will get to your questions and comment, I assure you. But in the interest of time, we want to make sure that there is a moment for everything. And I can also circulate that prior resolution for everyone to look at. I know that I certainly have additional questions, but I want to make sure that other committee members have a chance to speak. Catherine, I see that your hand is raised.
Yes, if the chair will allow me, I'll combine my comment with my question.
Yeah.
Because it's
Move it.
contextual. So I want to say a few things that people might not realize. The US Open is a Parks Department event. This is a wonderful opportunity to look at how the spread of a public US Open that is an international and global event spreads throughout the city. I think that that Madison Square Park is actually getting it right by using their neighbor, IBM, their new neighbor, and situating themselves to what I hope is more than a financial partner. So we've been talking about metrics. I can't think of anything else but IBM Watson right now. And I hope that Holly will think about IBM as a place in the world of AI that would help us get smart about public spaces, parks, metrics, all those things. That's being said, I again reiterate, I guess my question comes to, do you foresee neighbors around the park having an issue during this time when the whole city is as excited about the US Open as anything else? Do you foresee local neighbors? Will you outreach to local residents to let them know that this is happening in a way that noise and crowds and whatever else happens? You know, we don't talk much about NBA or hockey or what other sports do this too. This is the way that tennis folks do this. I played all through high school, so I'm kind of excited about what you're doing here. I'm personally excited, but I want to be respectful to the neighbors and the residents in the neighborhood, and that they feel like that this is the balance between business and resident in a park.
Certainly, we have great relationships with a lot of the local buildings. In the concierges, we are on email lists and we regularly share flyers with them or other email updates. We have 12,000 people on our e-newsletter as well as 50,000 on our social media. So we will do our best to publicize this activation on all of those channels and obviously making people aware of any sensitive issues.
Thank you.
Yeah, we want to make sure that in past years, one of the requirements of coming before the board is also that if this is of a size and scale, that it's a requirement for the bids to notify neighbors with ample notice, a minimum of a week in advance. I think that you would probably want to do this earlier than that. Michael Kayback, do you have a question or do you have a comment? And I will come back to you for a comment. but this is for a question about the event. Oh. Wait, hang on, Mike. We don't have you unmuted yet. Hang on. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. You know that I've been going to this park for 30 years, right? So I've been to quite a few of the tennis exhibits, the August tennis, and it used to be run by American Express, and they only allowed American Express cardholders to sit in the seats that they had arranged around the Farragut statue. That was the only place, Holly, where they showed it, not all over the park, just there. But you had to have a card. And if you didn't have a card, you couldn't sit on the American Express chairs that were right around the screen, which were in the pool that was vacated, you know, the Christmas tree pool that was vacated for these chairs and surrounding, roped off. My question, will IBM require some kind of connection to IBM in order for people to partake in all of these great festivities? That would be my question for the.
The only requirement is a heartbeat. You're good. You don't need a card. You don't need any fancy technology. You just need to be able to get yourself over there.
With that, I'll be there. Goodbye, folks. I gotta go.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Michael Kayback. All right.
Mike, can you hold?
Wait,
hold
hold
for the
on.
debate for the
Hold on
vote?
just a moment. Yeah, wait, Michael, can you hang on for just a moment? Because we're gonna go to a vote in a second. We're gonna try to move as quickly as possible. Todd, real quick here, and then we want to run through this matrix. And I just want to note too, Holly, if you could, just really quick, my own question, would you consider, can you give us the exact number of signs and the dimensions? And would you be able to reduce it to either just something that is maybe half, a quarter of whatever size that is, which looks the size of, I don't know, 15 feet or something, that's smaller than that is really very long. And then also, can there be sound breaks in between those giant blocks of time? That is something that is routinely asked for in our questionnaire, that if something is going to have amplified sound, that there needs to be breaks. I know you said that there's that one break, but can there be additional breaks of amplified noise? And then also looking at, this is a very long event of 4 days, if the build out can be shorter, because I think it's a 2-day build out, if there's a way to make that shorter, and the breakdown a little bit shorter, just so it's not taking away from all of the use of the park during that build out. I think that those 3 things would also be something that we're looking at, but specifically the number of signs and the size of the signs, I think we would really appreciate being reduced. Just from
Would
the
you like me
scale
to
of-
respond to that, or is that?
Yeah, and then
a
also
statement?
just a question of, would you be willing to modify all of those things?
So I'll start with the load-in dates. This is the shortest possible length of time for this to happen. There's a lot of technology involved in this setup. It cannot be done in any less than the 2 days. And I will just say, Marshalls, Lego, IBM are all very much in the same realm of setup for, getting things in and out of the park, as well as they are for signage. The Home
They've
Goods
also-
project.
Those have been problems in the past, which is why we're addressing them now.
Well, those were all approved. I presented them and they were approved, and the signs are not markedly different. Again, we can debate what's considered a big sign and what's considered a small sign, but right now, sounds like you're in the process of revising your matrix. And these designs that I'm showing you are preliminary. So I don't have a count and I don't have an exact measurement at this time. Sound breaks.
Can I just interrupt for a sec, Makara? You asked about the impact on the park. I mean, part of why we do everything on the gravel is, and not where it used to be, where I would counter, Michael, that it did end up filling up the park because the people who didn't get VIP seating all sat in the lawns, is because you don't have to close off any of the park for the setup, other than the gravel area. So it is a minimal impact. We wouldn't be closing pathways for, the entire days or anything like that. So just in terms of kind of that impact during the setup, it's much more minimal since it's confined to the gravel.
And in terms of amplified sound, there are definitely a lot of segments of the day where you won't have any sound because this event, the tennis will open at 9 a.m. There's no audio associated with that. It's ambient sound from just the balls hitting the table. A match would start at 11. It would probably end 1:32. Then you have a break. You have a break until the evening game starts at 7 p.m. So it's not a constant all day audio experience.
Just wanted to follow up on that. It's just amplified sound of any kind. That's not like acoustic talking is what our questionnaire that you filled out says. And then also just to follow up that the fresh activation specifically did not have any signage listed in any of the diagrams. And we do ask for the number, location, and size of all of the signs in that questionnaire again that you have. And then also we ask for the number of speakers as well. So and the type of speakers and like pretty aggressive detail about the acoustic sort of material, but just it is a residential neighborhood and I do expect this to be very popular. I personally love going to the US Open. I think everyone should get a grounds pass. It's one of the best New York experiences that you possibly have. I'm excited about this going to the park, but it is a balancing act. And we just want to make sure that the park has been amenable in the past. I know that there's been a lot of turnover between the park staff and then also on our committee, but we were pretty lenient in COVID with trying to make sure that enough activations came through to again meet that fundraising requirement of full funding. But in that process, a lot of things sort of slipped through the cracks. I have a feeling that Todd might be about to speak to this. But we want to make sure that we kind of get back on track with how things were. We also know that we were pretty lenient, especially with the dog park reconstruction, that some of the marketing events were unable, and I think it was one of the fundraising events, were unable to actually come to exist. And some were kind of snuck in under the wire, and we were pretty lenient about sort of the timing on hearing stuff. But again, just a reminder that like it is in our questionnaire that if you do not come before the committee with your activation prior to it happening, it is an automatic denial. Just so new members of the committee are clear, like this is a questionnaire that we send, is very routine. It's the same for everybody. We try to not play favorites with it, but just to level set there. Todd, question, and then I really want to bring this to a vote or discussion about what we're voting on. And then
Libby, I gotta go, but I vote yes. I love it. I gotta go. Sorry.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Okay, Todd.
Okay, just very quickly, I want to add my voice to Libby's and some of the things that was said. The philosophy always of our of parks and public spaces is always to gradually do more with less, and always keep in mind, as it appears you have in some respects, the size and the sound and the footprint. And what I could say is I remember well the other years where people were sitting on the lawn and it was exclusive, right? So I'm glad to hear you're moving away from that.
Can you make it go away? It's still on.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, there seems to be a little bit of crosstalk. I'm not sure where it's coming from.
Okay, so let me finish. So, as far as the signage goes, I would urge you to move away. And again, I couldn't really see, the diagrams. In an age of digital and video screens, there were ways that you could actually dispense with the signage. You could simply have it incorporated or show up on the video displays. We're moving more and more. I wouldn't use what the size of the signage and what everybody else has done. I would urge you to try to use your imaginations and the people making this to limit the signage. And then I understand that it takes a long time to set these things up, but 5 days or 6 days or, whatever it is, not everybody is a tennis fan. There's gotta be ways that looking forward, you could do this quicker and more efficiently, maybe using different kinds of technology. But smaller is better. And I would urge you with your people that are applying to do this to come up with ways to do that. That's it.
Okay.
Just to clarify, it's 2 days, not 5 days for setup.
Well, the entire event is 5 days. Smaller is
I think
better. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, the entire event is longer. Yeah, I think that there's been some pushback on the amount of load-in time on previous activations as well. So that is part of what this is about, is that is a longer time than we see in some of our other parks that also do even larger commercial things. In the interest of time, I guess that is just another question of please limit your signage. It's another question. I'm going to bring it to the public comment now, because we had a member of the public who was
Just in the interest of resident.
a question or comment.
A question.
Okay, one last question from John here.
This is writing the resolution.
Okay.
The hours, I just want to be clear, the hours for sound are only gonna be between 11 and 2 and 7 and 10. Is that correct? Because I thought I might have heard something a little different.
That is correct. I cannot predict if a match might go until 2:30 if it's a really long match. So, you know, with
I said
some
sound.
level of that's a reasonable, right? So
Yeah,
at,
there's not-
at 2
you said
o'clock
there's
in the
not gonna be
afternoon.
any
I think you're gonna cut this out.
Yeah, there's no sound at 10. You said that you're turning the sound off. The TVs will be muted at 10.
No.
Yes, yes, that's what I said.
11 and 2 is Same, my question is 11 and 2, same rule? Because I'm hearing something different. I'm hearing that for the 11
So 11 to
and
2 is a general guideline. It's in the middle of the day. It's not at night, so it's not disruptive, as it would be at 10 p.m., which we've agreed we will mute televisions. So if a match that starts at 11 p.m. goes extremely long, there is maybe a world where it might go a little past 2, but we'll use that, you know, that discretion.
Kyle, is it fair to say that there's 2 matches that are getting shown a day, right? That's essentially what we're doing. We're showing a afternoon match and a night match. So that's and no more than that.
Did I hear you correctly that starting at 9, there will be ambient?
Well, that's what I heard earlier. I heard
No, the activation for ping pong is starting at 9. So people can come and play ping pong that doesn't have sound. Just the balls hitting. That's going on all day. When the matches come on, they're going to switch those screens to play the tennis match. The ping pong will pause. In between the matches, when there's no match, back to ping pong. Then when at 7 o'clock, when the match comes back on, those screens will flip so people can watch the open.
Okay.
So there are
And then
multiple breaks.
We got a follow-up question, and then we're gonna go to public comment, and then.
In terms of the sound, is it emanating solely from the TV sets or from speakers?
And exactly how many TVs are there?
TVs, right.
There are 5 TVs, and this is this type of speaker. It's an UPM ultra compact, highly directional speaker. That is all the information I have at this point. But again, it's really intended just to direct audio to the immediate area and not like reach to the other side of the park as you would have in a concert or in a loud setting where the person in the back row needs to hear every word.
Okay, public comment,
Just unmute them. Can I just make a quick comment about that?
we're gonna go to comments after. Okay, members of the public, if you wish to speak, Charles Nye, you can unmute yourself now.
Yeah, my question is regarding the use of the ping pong tables being donated afterwards. Is it possible to also let that be known in all your social media and your newsletter, as some of those constituents might not be in attendance on this meeting and not be aware of that? And also, I was wondering if you could comment on the usage at the moment of the NYP boulders at each entrance of the park and why they're there and how long they're going to be there for. Thank you.
We're happy to publicize the elements that are for donation, but Holly, I'll let you answer the NYPD part.
So those were delivered not at our request or even knowledge right before the No Kings parade that, as you'll recall, ended in the park. And then I think they decided to just keep them there through Pride. So we are hoping that they will get removed. It is not something we requested, but that's why we were told they were there.
Okay, and Michael Benavib, sorry if I've not pronounced your name correctly. You can unmute yourself and provide your comment now.
Thank you. You pronounced my name just perfectly. A number of things. First, Michaela said that the park was derelict, and I just have to take exception with that. I've lived in the area for 35 years. It was never derelict. It wasn't a polished jewel like it is now, but it was always a nice park. Secondly, I'm concerned. I remember when they did this last time, the feed and music and noise on the televisions was the feed that was on TV, including the TV commercials. Will the TV commercials be aired in between the matches and during the breaks? And could that sound be muted of the TV commercials?
Great. Thank you very much, Michael. That is a fantastic comment. Polly, very curious what you have to say. Or Michaela.
I will say that I don't know the broadcaster's requirements. Usually getting the rights to a broadcast entails the ads that go with it. Certainly no one likes commercials. So if there's a way to mute those, I'd be happy to try. I just don't know what the expectation is from the broadcaster, which, I mean, as we can all understand, is essentially donating this very valuable feed to us for the public. But I will ask.
Or they're paying for it. With the sign. Yeah, IBM's probably paying for it. And we don't, just one more question, we don't have a solid number of signs, right? You did not, that's not specified in this questionnaire, just following up.
No.
Okay, cool. So committee is now in business session. Very quickly, I wanted to hear how people feel. I think that we have some pretty strong feelings from where things were before. And a little bit different feeling now in light of like past activations that have happened in this park. So want to hear what everyone says. I do think that the commercials totally add a different thing about sound. It is in our questionnaire that it asks to have breaks if anything is amplified, and by definition, this is amplified. Yeah, Marnell.
So I just want to talk to that, and again, no response required, but when there was the jazz presentation, they brought a graphic of the park and how the sound would be in different parts of the park. And I thought that was very instructive. I mean, I think that could be something that could be part of all your presentations to the extent that it is, you know, yeah, I mean, it's something, if you could do that, I mean, that would definitely be very instructive to us looking at this, you know, knowing what the scale of the noise is going to be. Just to comment there. Anyway. That was that.
All right, how's everyone feeling?
This is a massive event. It stretches over. You rarely see specific events like this. It's not like a Christmas or something.
Yeah.
It's like
long.
A week.
It's long, yeah.
It's very long. There's a lot of setup time, a lot of downtime.
And it's noise. It's not like
It's in the
Christmas.
day, it's in the night. The equipment stays there overnight. There's security people in the park. I mean, there's a lot of stuff there, which results in a much larger footprint than we normally see. Having said that, they do make a compelling argument for the public benefit. So.
And the neighbors,
And
the IBM being a new neighbor to the park.
even if being a new neighbor to the, I'm not sure that's public benefit. Well, I guess.
It's local A,
Right.
local adjacent.
And it's something that they said that the public, at least in New York, is clamoring for. It does have a local benefit, global benefit, national benefit. And I believe also, as it was said earlier, that it's part of a larger park scheme.
It's on park land, the grounds are.
Right, the grounds is also ash station and all that sort of stuff. So, at the end of the day, for me, the public, that's what I was really struggling with the beginning. Is this a commercial event?
It's definitely a commercial event.
Or public benefit? It is both. It's both.
Right.
So I would vote in favor of it, but recognizing, I think in the resolution, we have to acknowledge that.
And there have been
this is-
problems
this
with
is-
that, yeah.
And this is, and that I'll stand with like, in terms of the footprint side.
Yeah, like this is not what
And the
we,
duration.
this is an exception to what we
Yeah.
actually think of as a passive park. Tom. Okay, let's go online really quick. Again, it's 9 o'clock, friends. We are well past our time. Tom Ricardo, who is even later than us abroad, staying on for this meeting. So
I was just gonna make a motion to approve with conditions. But there's a couple of comments, so.
Can you, yeah, okay, withdrawn. Catherine?
I'll be really quick. I want to explain it. I want to clarify this again. This is an event that aligns very well with the mission of the park, the city. The US Open is a public park event. It's not it's a public-private partnership that is expanding from the tennis center into Madison Square Park. This is what Madison Square Park should be doing to have a substantial revenue stream activation. And so I just want to remind you all that this is aligned and that IBM is a private partner in a public event. And I just hope that Madison Square Park will figure out sound issues. But other than that, I think this is what we want to see more of. IBM is a neighbor, a business neighbor, and the US Open is a public parks event, event that is of a global and international significance that Madison Square Park gets to participate in. And so I think this is right on.
Todd?
Yes, I was gonna say the same thing that Catherine was gonna say. So it is a Parks event and we're piping it in to a Manhattan location. But I go back to what I said before, where there's a will, there's a way, the technology associated. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you, where there's a will, there's a way. I would suggest that the resolution just make our concern known that they use the best and evolving technology to shrink the footprint and the setup time. They can do it if they have the will to do it. That's it.
Julia?
No
You're
concerns.
talking about the event itself and.
No, I agree with everything Catherine was saying. I think this is a great and kind of, I especially like that they took the time to consider things like load in, load out, how that's disruptive to the community. So like, okay, we're gonna have a structure that covers the tech. I appreciate that. But understanding the noise and concerns, obviously.
You haven't seen our questionnaire yet, but we also asked very specifically for instructions about load in, load out with the TikTok, so like, that's not.
Got it.
That's standard. Christopher?
I think this is, I don't have any problems with the footprint. It's changed from the past and it looks like it's vastly improved. Obviously Holly knows what she's doing. It's on the gravel. Like, can we please consider, like, it is literally just on gravel. It's not on grass. It's not doing what Bryant Park constantly does, like disrupting the entire lawn. It's not for a pharmaceutical or a cosmetic company. The US Open is a New York event, not just a US event. It is literally in New York only. Like, it puts New York, firmly on the map and in the firmament of like the entire world. So like, oh, everybody wants to be in New York at that particular time. It's a world staged event on par with the Olympics. And it is something that we can kind of give like a layer of benefit of the doubt to a set of professionals who seem to have done an incredibly good job with how they manage the park and how they're going to manage this event. yes, we should put our concern about signage and we should put our concern about sound in there. But we should note that the only people who brought us any compelling public testimony are the people who run the park very well, who have said that they are very well connected to the nearby buildings. And I mean, when I think about it, where that section of the park is, the only residences are that one on Broadway that I think is particularly ugly, a very large, sorry if you live there, and then a couple of private events, and then another large doorman building, which Rupert Murdoch used to live in. But there's a very small set of residences that would even be like across a very large street and like trees from this, and those are all buildings that are, or almost all buildings that are like pretty insulated from sound, because again, they live on a busy street. So, but I would just like to remind the entire committee that as much as it's our duty to like, you know, complain about every possible thing, we should rely on the testimony of the actual residents, you know, more than just like these hypothetical ideas of what if it's too loud at 10 p.m. Like, I think there should be a limit to the hypothetical, like, worrying about, testimony and like looking at the actual testimony that we got from neighbors, which was, I fondly remember this event, why don't they do this again, et cetera, et cetera. So I think like, you know, if we put our fingers to the wind, the people who live nearby the park and people in the community will be very enthusiastic about the event itself. And then again, we can make our statements about signs and sound, but I think they've got it under control. And this is, again, one of only 4 events that they get to do. It's a huge part of their budget. I think we should approve it and, you know, put our typical stipulations in and then call it a day.
Okay,
Wait, I move.
no, I do not recognize you. I do not recognize you.
Recognized.
BJ.
Yes, I just wanted to make a quick comment. Thank you for recognizing me, Madam Chair. I don't know if it's from the, you know, yes, it is a public event. I think it's a great benefit. And we also know that US Open events are priced out, right, for low-income families. I mean, it's very expensive to go to that event. So I'm so glad that Madison Square Park is showing this. And along that theme, I'm going to encourage and ask that whether, I don't know if it's US Open that you would work with, Michaela, or the park yourself, because you said you have like 11,000 people in your distribution list, but make a concerted effort to make sure that this notification about this happening goes out to the wider audience across 5 boroughs. I know, for example, I know the park also works with different beneficiaries like 8 Packs for Youth, but maybe reach out to Boys and Girls Clubs, or again, our community organizations that exist around there. That's my only comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, BJ. Okay, is there anyone else in the room who has a comment?
I have a comment, I'll be really quick, which is the gravel area is not that big, and in the questionnaire, you estimated 1,000 people per day. I would strongly urge you to consider additional staffing in case you have way more than 1,000 people a day watching those 2 games. In which case you would have somewhat of a chaotic situation in that smaller gravel area. That's it.
Okay, I would be okay. I think we're gonna have a motion here in just a second from Tom, but I wanna ask if the committee feels okay with setting a number of signs that we feel is okay, given like the length and duration of this. To specify a number.
But what's the definition of a sign? I mean, this is there's
Word.
multiple sides, like any words on any
Words.
handlebar, like, I mean, an inch, like, is that considered a sign? Is that really realistic?
This is we're in business session, but that is what we mean by sign is words. Christopher.
I know, I don't think we should be inventing policy or precedent for this. We could say, please reduce your signage from what we've seen and leave it as an unspecified thing, because again, like what we say, we only want 7 signs today, and then next week, you know, somebody puts 15 signs and we have to start arguing about, like, this is not the time to set like a number for that sort of thing. Let's just say, please reduce the signage.
Maybe language would be, language, signage that is appropriate for the event, consistent with similar events in the past, something along those
I
lines.
think the similar events, based on what we've got from the office, were like problematic, and based on what we've heard from the public comment, was like, so this is better than that because this is smaller. And that was like, they drained the reflecting pool and everything, put in like bleachers, and it was limited access, and it was it sounds like it was bad.
No, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't mean consistent with, this particular event. I'm talking
Well, in
about-
our own questionnaire, some of the prior events that happened in the park don't comply with what we saw at the presentation. What we saw at the presentation was very different than what ended up happening in real life, and I got, as the chair, got many comments about what happened in real life.
Okay.
So that's part of
What
the,
you propose?
I'm just wondering if the committee has like a thought on that as far as like the overall setup, because we don't have the full schematics here. It's also, I think we should make sure that it's not illuminated. Since that's what reflected in the conversation.
I think they already said it's.
Yeah, they said, but I just wanna make sure it makes it into the
Yeah.
resolution.
We could potentially kind of like the large signage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's the large signage is really the thing that we try to limit is that like this is already in parks guidelines, parks protocol, parks precedent, like it is very much there that like it's not meant to be a billboard in any regard. Like there's meant to be like a size and scale where it is sort of like very small, very diminished, like the Fancy Feast, like logo was just literally like an F and like all of the signage took place inside of the tent. Like there was nothing facing outward on this activation in 2023. And that was really the practice of every activation kind of like up until this year. I mean, we were pretty lenient with COVID, but sort of returning back to sort of the quietness of a passive park. Again, it's not Bryant Park. It's not, they've not had sort of the crime issues. As we heard from a member of the public, it's sort of not the same thing, but there was sort of this longer struggle. That we can get into a little bit too, during orientation, but that is sort of the history of, we've been pretty lenient. There've been meetings where people haven't really come. It's just making sure that we kind of get back to being really consistent with what we're asking for.
What are your thoughts on it?
I'm open to what the committee says. I just want to make sure that we're aware of it, and protect my inbox a little bit, but also making sure that like we don't allow that kind of thing for Bryant Park at all, and that is a much more commercialized park. Than putting it in a passive park. Again, like I love the US Open. I go every year.
Couldn't we treat
You
it?
can go for free on the last days, by the way. It is not, there are parks grounds, they are free to go. It is not ticketed. And there aren't matches at the very end. You can buy like the very cheap grounds pass. But I'm pretty sure the very last days is just open and viewing. So.
Is there any more like granular detail that we look at commercialization signage for? Cause if I see like US Open, that's the name of the tournament. That's what's gonna get me. That's the actual activation itself. It also is a brand. It also is a sport entity, but like. For me, I'm like, at a certain point, you have to have signage to get the people in.
We actually, most of our activations don't have any signage at all.
Well, this is gonna have signage.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to, but the other four,
So
generally,
then-
like typically, even like literally it's a Fancy Feast thing, like the thing that gets them in is. Like part of what we ask for is like not having it be publicized, and we've actually asked in the prior activations to like not go to market it at all.
So I guess my question is, what's the difference between a commercial sign and a commercial activation itself? Like, in reality, it's the same thing.
Well, I think it's more of it's the idea behind the commercialization. I hope you'll join our activations committee. But the idea behind the signage is more that like it's someone is doing something in the park that is making money for them ultimately, and the people who go are going to do it. Like very few people went to this Fancy Feast thing, but it was like a big thing. And still was successful. I do recognize how much money this is going to make, and that they are new neighbors, but just the signage is quite large. Christopher.
I just don't think the time right now is to like figure out what the policy is gonna be on signs. We can do that
Yes.
another time, and we
Should we
should just
give
say,
them the-
please review.
Yes,
We'll give them-
please.
Give them
Gonna
the-
put it out,
That's
yeah.
fine. It's our current policy, send it to them.
But I think reducing it from.
Reduce the signage for what though, right?
Reducing it,
Well,
as we're
how
seeing
do
right
we
now,
do park
as of right now, we have seen one US Open symbol and one IBM symbol, and that is it. We have seen one label of each, and that is it. So is that what we are agreeing to right now in our?
Or could we
resolution?
ask that they return to us with
Was
schematic?
there two?
There's
One.
going up in September.
The B is a B. Like
Yeah, it's not an
Yeah.
obvious logo.
Just to
and, like, be
clarify,
honest-
this is a television
here.
screen. It's not a logo.
We're in business session. Only members of the committee are allowed to speak now. Thank you.
And we also haven't gotten into whether we talk about US Open signage or IBM signage. I mean, it's, when you read the application that they submitted, it's very fuzzy.
It's very vague. Yeah, I think that we only,
A reference point.
I think that we don't have any US Open logo on here. We just have one IBM sign. So I think that if that's what we're going on, then that's what we're approving. I just want to make sure that we're clear as far as like the size and scope. Is that like one IBM sign and that's all we're doing? And it's something that is only, I don't know, a third of the size. I don't think this is drawn to scale. So I just, again, it's not the normally activations have much more detailed metrics. Porcelanos has been very specific. I can show you the Fancy Feast, which is like within an inch of its life, including menu items. So, yeah, it's just as far as the detail goes. I don't have an idea. I'm willing to defer to the committee on this. I just want to make sure that we deal with it. But yeah, okay, John's writing it. So yeah, John.
I mean, I don't have any objection to the reducing. It's just when you read the application, there's no reference point. You reduce it from what?
There's just
That's the
one
problem.
sign.
This
There's just
entire-
one IBM in the entire
Yeah,
application.
and they don't even speak to that language. That's just like.
The question is
a
blank.
picture, right,
The
right.
question is
That's
blank.
the problem.
It's not
So
it's not a
I feel
complete
more
questionnaire is really the problem.
Appropriate, like, you know, appropriate for the event. And at this point, we just have to leave it like that.
But I guess, yeah, we can
Because at
revisit
the end of the
this
day, in
too.
reality, they're gonna, let's be honest, they're gonna have, because we don't have any additional information at this point.
Well, they
They're
can
gonna-
take additional information, we can.
Unless
take
we
the-
say
yeah,
one,
that.
unless we say one sign or two signs.
Yeah, it's part of why I brought it up. Yeah, Myrna.
Could I propose putting in the letter that we ask in the resolution that we ask Madison Square Park to be a lot more precise in future activation. There are no more for this year, is that right?
I think there is one, there is definitely one for the holidays. I think we are
Okay.
number.
Okay, and then we say, and also keep the signage for this particular event to be at a reasonable level. And then.
Point of order, we can make comment to future applications on the,
We can do what-
the resolution. You can do whatever you
we can
want.
do whatever
All
we
right.
want.
Yeah, I didn't know that, because I would say the wording would be minimal in their signage or, you know,
It can just
as a
be, it can
condition
be in
remind.
accordance
Because
with what we already, okay. Do I
Yeah.
have a motion? Yes.
Motion to,
I move to approve with the commentary that we just said. To keep it reasonable. Approve with conditions outlining all of our conditions. Okay.
Second, all right,
great. Okay,
taking it to a vote. Charles,
Yes.
Tina, Julia,
Yes.
Catherine,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Libby.
yes.
Mike's absent, and my mom Markham is absent, Gail,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Tom.
yes.
Yes.
Did I hear Todd? Todd, yes.
Thank you. BJ,
Yes.
I am a yes. Motion passes. All right, new business.
Okay, so as we have alluded to throughout this, there is a subcommittee information to look at, the two things, the reevaluating our matrix and then also the questionnaire. There's some technical elements to the questionnaire that make it really annoying and hard to read in the PDF. Just to like simplify that, I also think that some of the requirements are a little bit, sorry, thank you, Holly and Makala and then Vincenzia, thank you, welcome. Hopefully we will meet in person and have a longer conversation about all of these details soon. So the physical questionnaire does outline all of our policies and all of our precedent. We get a lot of questions back from people who don't seem to read it. I think some of that is like an educational psychology, physical presentation thing. So those two things that need attention. And then the third thing is something that John Harris, I was hoping would head up. We need to, for ahead of that meeting with Bryant Park that we heard so much about for September, this is a continuation of a joint landmarks meeting and our prior meeting with them on the level of their programming, whether it is like their free programming, it is just a lot. But we wanted to know metrics of how many events they're doing, how many people are going, and for things that bring in money, what's sort of the foot traffic per dollar ratio, among other things. But we want to give them a really specific list of what we want so that we can make better decisions. And so I was hoping that could draft John Harris, who has really good ideas that I hope this committee might also work on, for what kind of metrics we want to measure for the parks in general as we check in on the health of them, and do like our general committee work, sort of the metrics part of this, but it's sort of like internal evaluation stuff. It doesn't have to all be the same people, but I was hoping that people might join this. I know Christopher is already excited about the activations because he has very strong feelings about them. And Catherine, I know, cares deeply about this too.
And then Todd for the image stuff.
And then Todd for the image stuff to make sure that that makes it into the questionnaire. Julia, maybe you want to join for some of the.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely interested in this. Yeah, activation tension we got going on.
Yes, it has been a long time sort of building.
Yeah.
And sort of a give an inch and take, 5
Mhm.
miles. So it's.
Yeah,
some
I
of
mean,
it predates
a
us.
little background on this is also, it's, like Libby said, during COVID, the idea was, we were letting a lot of it slide because
Yeah.
you wanted more participation
Mhm.
and business was struggling, everybody was struggling. Now we have the opposite problem.
And some of it's also just institutional memory. There's been like 100% turnover at Madison Square Park,
Yeah.
for example.
Oh.
So there's no institutional memory of like a very long time ago, things like the old US Open event
Yeah.
were really unpopular. I have heard a lot about something called the Big Apple Barbecue. And it was one of the biggest success stories of this committee, to push back because of how big it was and sort of size and scope. But so we want to make sure that we have, and Madison Square Park was really great. They did work. It took a long time to work out, but they was responsive. And so sort of returning to that kind of process is kind of what we're hoping for. But we also pretty desperately need a better questionnaire and matrix, and like it's killing us. Catherine, I see your hand is raised.
Sure. So one comment, question. The way in which we work at this, I think, is as important as the outcome. And so I'm gonna ask, is this something we're working on over the summer as we head toward the next meeting in September? If so, is there a way to collaboratively engage us as a committee? I like the idea of, I don't, I know some of this has to be a subcommittee, somebody has to lead, but I also want to open this up in a way that we're all working together. It's summer. My schedule changes, but I'm present. I'm here. And so, and I want us to think creatively about how this can happen. Are we having hybrid meetings? Can we open up collaborative documents? Because I don't want to be rushing and I want to be thinking things through. I don't want to be, I want us to be able to move together as much as we can.
No, I totally hear you, Catherine. I think that we can check with the office and Marisa. There are going to be some open meetings constraints to the ability to do full business. My thought is that
Not full business. This is not full business. And let me just say this right now, because you're asking for people to commit time and to think about things, and we should be moving through this together. And so this is a subcommittee. You want to make this a subcommittee. I'm just trying to ask, let's be really more inclusive. That's all I'm saying.
There are open meetings rules around this. The idea is to have people, like many other subcommittees that have gone out and revised processes. This is something that we will then vote on what comes back when we adopt a new questionnaire and we adopt a new matrix. That is something that we will then engage once the committee comes back with a proposal of, hey, this is what worked out, and sort of edit. I obviously want as many people as possible to be part of this. We do just need to make sure that we comply legally with that process. And then as far as timeline goes, the questions for Bryant Park, we need to have those questions on the data to them. Certainly by mid-July would be great, because if they're going to come sort of that last week of August, first week September, we want to make sure that we give them ample time to come back with that information so that we don't meet with a response of, they were unable to find it, so that they have enough time to sort of provide us with the information that we've asked for, and provide it in writing this time, as opposed to the last month's version of just asking for it and then not really receiving it.
But committee members will have the opportunity to
Yeah,
preview it
everyone can weigh in and everyone can preview it, like I will circulate that and everyone can make edits to
with
it
ample amount of time.
with ample amount of time, but I just wanna make sure that if the subcommittee can get us like a draft of that by.
Well, I actually, couple things.
Yeah.
I probably need to have an offline conversation.
Yeah.
What I had volunteered to do was help draft the document. I'm not volunteering to head the committee. One, I wasn't aware until the second that we were talking about a subject.
It's really like a working group.
Because I won't be here.
Yeah, and I think that is my biggest concern, though Catherine, I really appreciate,
But
you know, being involved, but.
maybe Catherine could leave.
I mean, I think I'm also not going to think most of the committee, like the committee is off, but I think that that's where, for the questionnaire and like the matrix stuff, I think that we can touch base about it at our following meeting in September, but really it's more like an October conversation. The questions for Bryant Park are more immediate and need to happen. The questions and the data, like the data of like what we look at as like a parks committee is like a little bit more groovy and
But we're
big.
talking right
But
now,
like
just
immediate,
Bryant
like,
Park.
right, we need, we're talking about both, but like the immediate thing is we need information from Bryant Park, like if we could get that, a draft of that in the next, like, before we have full board or like right after, I think that would be helpful to get.
In fact, I would add that ideally you'd want the Bryant Park thing done before you finalize the matrix, because it's going to be an input into the matrix as well.
Well, it's also, I think that well before, the matrix is sort of like a touching base, I think, in October, and our October meeting, I think, might also still fall in September because of the cycle. But that's a longer horizon thing, just sort of trying to recruit for that now. But the more immediate concern is we need to ask Bryant Park for this data, and we want to give them a really important list. Yeah, Catherine, question?
So between Bryant Park, Madison Square Park, and Union Square Park, do each of them have a CB5 board member that is like assigned to those?
We do,
And we
but
use those-
not for Madison Square Park. We do not have a representative because the Conservancy's agreement is different. We do have a Nomad partnership member, but those assignments to those boards are up. As you saw in Brad's email, I encourage everyone to apply. And so those are up for reappointment.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, okay, so we can talk about that offline. That said, is there any additional thoughts on this?
Motion to adjourn.
We have to do new business for the public first.
There's one more thing you wanted to add to that. Also, we talked about updating the tech for the questionnaire so that it's easier for respondents to maybe do an online form or something.
Yeah. Tom, I know that it is dawn where you are, but is that something you might also be interested in helping with? And the office is also volunteer to help us with this too.
I mean, sun comes up early, it's 3:30, but yeah, I have no problem. I mean, that would be coming to me either way. So yeah.
Great. Okay, is there any new business from the public? Nothing? Okay,
Todd's got his hand raised.
I think he's driving. So, okay. With that, meeting adjourned.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
You.
Night, thanks.